So how do you like the Macallan? We're drinking Macallan 12-year that I got from my friend Jacob. Shout out to him. He was the first on the podcast.
He was the first one?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've known him since I was 5 years old.
No way, that's a wicked first guest then.
Yeah, so we talked about trying to save the Paramount and our experiences growing up.
I did listen to that one, actually. Yeah,
it was terrible. It was like your interviewing skills, they grow so much over time because like it was just like, hello, how are you doing today? And it's just like there's very little character to it.
But you want it to be terrible. Like you want every episode to be better than the first one.
That's true.
Or better than the last one, rather.
Yeah.
So your first one should be absolutely horrible. Your first probably a bunch should be.
Yeah, you don't realize it, I don't think, because like I was so worried about the equipment quality, the background, all of that stuff, and I did not think of how am I going to communicate.
Well, I remember, I don't know, I've done like a ton of YouTube research, and they say your first 50 videos are going to be crap.
Yeah,
probably more than that, but. Yeah. If you go back and look, the ones that you think were good at the time, you're just like, oh god.
Yeah. How has that curve been for you? What has that been like to look back? Do you leave up your old videos, your first ones?
I do. I think I took down one where I had some bad advice in it. And I was like sharpening some leather tool or whatever, and then I learned better afterwards, and I was like, it should come down just so people aren't wrecking my shit.
Right, because you learn more, I guess, throughout the process of what actually works.
Yeah. But I haven't taken any down for the sake of they're cringy. I'll just leave them there. And
how long were you doing leather work before you went to YouTube? I forget.
I guess I started in July, and then I started YouTube in December, or probably more got into YouTube in the following January. So
do you find it's easier because they say like you learn better through teaching? Did you feel like your learning improved when you started making videos?
I think so, because you're more deliberate with, I imagine that's like for anything, but you're more deliberate with what you're doing because you're trying to be an authority on something.
Yeah.
And you're not an expert, but you're kind of portraying an expert. Like people are going to go there and think, like if you make a video that's how to do this, someone's going to go there expecting an expert, and you don't need to be. You need to be one step ahead of them.
Yeah.
You need to be, good enough to show them how to do one thing.
Yeah.
But I think so. I think you learn quick because then you'll do how to do this and you focus your time into that. How to do this thing, you focus your time into that. I think doing YouTube's probably a great way to learn how to do something too.
Yeah. So what would you like, because I've told a bunch of people about you and they've realized like the benefits of doing that process, but do you enjoy having the camera on you more or on what you're doing more? Probably
what I'm doing more.
Yeah.
I had a funny comment recently. I won't try to find it, but actually I will try to find it. Screw it. I get some funny comments, but I think this was my favorite comment on a video I got, and I don't know if it was an insult, but I took it as a compliment. So
right. I do find that your community, like, because after releasing our first conversation, your community is crazy. Like the amount of people who reached out who were like, I really loved him. Like, I've really learned a lot from him.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, the people who reached out and who have followed me as a consequence. And
that's amazing.
And been like, oh, like I loved like watching his videos, and like he's doing something similar. Like there's one guy who's up in the interior, like not
in Lillooet.
Yeah. And he reached out and he was super friendly and thoughtful and like has commented on videos and just super nice guy. And it's like you've created like a community, like, because I'm sure that's like 1% of the communications you have.
Yeah, there's definitely like a core audience. Well, I'm sure you have too, like a core audience.
Well, like sort of, but no, not like, because yours is focused around making stuff. And so there's like conversations you can have about like, what are we going to do next? I don't have that with like my audience because they listen and then they do the rest of their day. And so
I guess you could draw a different audience depending on the guest too.
That's what I mean is like, and people don't often like, I'll have people be like, oh, like I listen to your episodes and I'm like, I don't know who you, I've never met you. Like we've never communicated. Didn't even know you existed. And so like, it's a weirder, more disconnected where you have like a community of people who are watching your videos to learn. And then you guys might be chatting on the side about like what tool you just bought or how you're improving X, Y, and Z. Since they're not participating, it's very like bystander audience.
I see.
That's in a different way.
It's totally different. I love that though, how it's like same platform, but a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Like an audience is not an audience. It's like each one is a separate thing.
Yeah.
And then those people can be parts of different audiences. I don't know. It's so cool.
It's a trip to me because when that happened, it was like, dude, this is like a huge response of people like talking about what they learned in the conversation.
Mhm.
Where for the most part, it's like, to me, it's like post and ghost. Like sometimes it'll be like 200 people listen and you could tell me that 0 people listened, and that's
Really?
the response that I feel like I got because there's no one responding to it.
That's cool. I've heard that podcast analytics are really good though. Like you can see what people are watching or what people are listening to. Is that true?
No.
Are they sucky?
Yeah. I don't like them. I liked them better on Buzzsprout. I think we talked about this before. I liked Buzzsprout more because it would give you like a little bit more information, but I don't like Anchor's analytics because they give you like people they're saying who'd listen to you and then people who are like listening to reoccurring episodes, but it's very tough to tell. And then it's like I don't learn a lot about my audience other than male and female, which is very vague. YouTube tells you how long, what points they tuned out at, and you can put chapters in so you can kind of pull someone back in because you did a chapter on like the one I just did was with a guy who's suing Twitter.
Yeah.
And he talks about like the World Economic Forum, which if you've ever been on a conspiracy theory site, there's a lot of conspiracy theories around the World Economic Forum, and he dives into it. And so I saw a spike in listenership. Podcasts don't have that.
Interesting.
And you can't, like Spotify and Apple Podcasts recommend tagging them in like Instagram posts and Twitter posts so they can retweet or share your, they've never, 0% of any of that. And so there's not like a creator community. Substack's better for that. So I don't know if you've ever used Substack, but they're very good at like newsletters. So there's like office hours. So you can all go into a forum and like sort of like Reddit, talk about issues you're facing, how to grow, it's not like that with podcasts. It's very independent. And so there's not really a community. And everybody is very narcissistic in the podcast world.
I can see that. You almost have to be.
Yeah, I don't like that though.
No, well,
characteristic.
Narcissistic in what way?
Like, listen to my podcast, and then maybe I'll listen to yours. Like, that's what the forums with podcasts are like, is like, somebody will be like, like, how do I, like, do you recommend this microphone? Well, if you tune into my podcast, you'll hear that I use this, but like, it's very selly. It's very, listen to my episode, and I don't really care about what your issue is.
Yeah, okay.
And so it's not very fruitful for like the leatherworking community you've built is very like, I'll try and help you out. And like, I've tried that and it didn't work. Like it's very, I'm not trying to get anything out of you. Where podcasts, it's all about like, listen to my episode.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That leatherworking community though was like that well before I started. It's like, I don't know if it's always been that way, but it is like one of the most supportive communities I've ever been a part of. Just like bunch of awesome people that all want to help each other with like a few idiot exceptions, but mainly everyone's amazing. Yeah. And then they helped me. And then that was part of my reason for doing YouTube was like, well, I'll just like move it forward. And then I like, or pay it forward rather. And then I've always just wanted to do YouTube too. So it just kind of was perfect.
How did that decision come about for you to want to like put yourself behind the camera? Because you could probably get away with not being behind the camera ever.
You probably could. I thought of doing something like, are you a big YouTube guy? Binging with Babish? Do you watch? No. So he's like a cooking guy, and he started, his channel's brilliant, and he's like millions of followers and like making stupid money. But he started just recreating meals and foods from film, and his was just, he would film like, if this is his like cooking top, he would film here. So it was just his midsection and what he's doing with his hands. And then he does a voiceover for it. And you would rarely see his face. Now he's blown up and he's more of a character. But I thought of doing something like that. Yeah. And I don't know. I still don't really like being on camera. So
you have the face for it though.
Do you think so?
I think so.
Maybe the face for leatherwork, but
yeah. I think you can pull it off. When I showed the sheriff your site, he loved everything about your aesthetic, but you also look the part. I think I mentioned that to you before.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, this guy, this is my favorite comment I've ever gotten. I don't know. You tell me if you think it's a compliment or not. But he said, "This is Winters. For some reason, your delivery reminds me of Between Two Ferns. You have a slightly ironic, slow cadence, the same as Zach G uses."
That is a compliment. Zach,
like,
Zach Galifianakis is a crazy successful person.
he is, but I think his how he speaks is a character, and this is just how I speak. So I still don't know if it's a compliment or not, but I'm taking it that way.
Yeah, you should, because I think you need like something unique, and I think that you have that, and I think a lot of people get that from how you describe things.
Could be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And your thumbnails are really good. Your thumbnails still beat my thumbnails.
You know what it's all about is the stupid red arrow.
Yeah.
YouTube thumbnail.
Yeah.
Big red arrow.
I can't do a big red arrow.
I know you can't.
When am I going to point at the day? I guess.
Point at you. Just go full narcissist. Listen to my podcast and just an arrow.
Yeah. I added my. Did you see? Did I already do the change to my style when you were on last? Because now my face is on it.
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay.
I think you did.
I don't know.
I can't remember.
That was a trip. I was very nervous because it's like bigger than me, and so I didn't want to put my face on it. But then I was like, people keep saying like I want to tune in, and then I'm like, bigger than me podcast, and they're like, I'm not going to remember that tomorrow when I go to type it in. I'm going to remember your name.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a thing even like for thumbnails and stuff. It's like if you look it up stats on YouTube, thumbnails with faces on them get more views than thumbnails without. So
yeah. So
stick your face on everything, man.
Yeah. I think I've got better thumbnails now than Lex Friedman. I like Lex, but
I really like him too. But something I like about him is like is this like nonchalance about him. Like I think he could probably make a better thumbnail, and he just doesn't care.
Same with Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he makes terrible thumbnails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the contents are amazing.
My friend Jake actually just said, he was like, your audio quality is better than Andrew Huberman's, because I run it through this thing to like level out, so your voice, even if you're like way back here, that I can level it out, and doesn't sound like he does that, because he was like, I have to crank it for Andrew Huberman, and then I have to lower it down for the guest, and so I'm constantly fiddling with the volume. Well,
we can talk about it. Like, since I've been here before, now we can talk about you a little bit. So explain your whole setup here, because I want to know. I'm trying to kind of set up something, a better like voiceover station, or maybe I like would love to do a podcast. Yeah, which we need to talk about.
We need to talk about that.
But so I got, you run the Scarlett
4i4.
Okay, so I got the Scarlett 2i2.
Yeah, no difference.
It's the same thing. Yeah, I paid
$200.
I didn't know that until you told me that. I was gonna get the 4i4, and then you said it was the same thing, so I got the 2i2.
Yeah.
So are they running directly out of the monitor on the 2i2? Or the 4i4, sorry?
Yeah, so I have a splitter, and people talk a lot of smack about the splitter. I don't know if you've heard that, but I had one splitter that never touched it in my life, but it just broke. So apparently splitters aren't great.
But you don't need it to be great for this. Nobody is going to hear what you and I are hearing. It's going there, and then we're monitoring a separate
100%
thing, so it doesn't matter.
But like the problem is like it cuts out. Like if I touch it at all, it'll start going nuts, and like you'll lose it in one ear, and like splitters are just low. Like they don't make a great. So the person was saying I can buy a preamp and I can run it through that, and then it won't have that issue. But I guess splitters, because there's no power coming from them, running two microphones takes more power, and so you can lose the benefit.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so I have the Scarlett 4i4. The Rode pod mics, which I really like. They're supposed to have like the plosive reduction. Wasn't great at that, but then I put this over it. I could have gotten one of those, I don't know what they're called, the shields. Yeah, I just think they aesthetically look awful, and so I chose the black, because people recognize a black microphone.
No, they look good, man.
Yeah,
and even like this, I mean, this is like a total nerd thing, but like even this Rode arm is like the best of these arms. Or there's like,
and there's a cover for them now, so they have the PSA 1 Plus, and they cover it now.
Yeah, but their logo, they like plastered it. It looks kind of janky. I think this looks nicer.
Oh, interesting.
But I think there's this, and then there's like the Gator Frameworks one that Joe Rogan uses, which I like as well.
I don't like those ones.
Do you not?
Yeah, I get it because it's like lower and it's but there's something about this that I just prefer, because I see his Gator arms and they just kind of look like you're in a shop, and the rest of his space doesn't look like that at all.
No.
So.
Have you seen, he did a video where he was kind of talking about his setup, and he has some like cool stuff. He has like, they have like panels there where they have like a cough button and stuff where they can mute their mic. And
I didn't see that video, but yeah, I've heard of that.
It's a pretty nice setup. And then Jamie has like a whole workstation there, and they like showed his whole state. It's pretty cool.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, they have a pretty cool setup.
They post all their stuff online, which I like. Like you can go through his studio and they have all the pieces that he owns.
Yeah. I like that it's still like a 2-man crew.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm sure there's like more people working there.
Or there's just
doing things. But I think in like making the podcast, I'm pretty sure they're the only two with their hands in it, really.
Yeah. I think that that's really admirable. They make it seem like anybody can do it. And that's definitely how you approach it.
They're the biggest podcast in the world. I mean, I know he has like experience being on TV and talking in front of people, but really anyone can do it. Yeah,
that's how I felt about some of my guests. Like I had an ocean pollution expert on, and I was like, this is a Joe Rogan level quality guest that he could go on there if like Joe Rogan knew about him, and it wouldn't be like outside the realm of possibility. So that's really helped like kind of calibrating, because you can be like, oh, there's like not big names, and it's like, well, the name is as big. Like there's lots of people he's interviewed that you didn't know about until you saw him on there, and this could just be another one of those people.
Is that a bit intimidating sometimes if you have like some brilliant guest on and you're like, man, I'm like, you're so much smarter than me.
The biggest trip is being like, why are you in my house? Yeah. Like what? Like I'm not qualified. Like there's no credentials here that makes me like some people are really grateful for it. And it's like, sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm like, you're an ocean pollution expert. Like been to the UN, presented to Obama. Like you're just in my house, just talking about your life. Like this in my head, I'm like, you're just wasting your time, man. Like I don't know anything. And so that's a trip, and it's been a journey to try and feel more like this is.
That's the bullshit part, though, is that's like the imposter syndrome, sinking in. Like you're an interviewer, and these are people that want to get, what they're doing out there. Yeah. So it makes sense that they would come here, but it's just like crazy what you're doing while you're doing it.
Yeah, he came out from the island.
Yeah.
And stayed out here just to sit down with me and talk to me. And it was just like super nice guy. It's just such a trip, like our provincial apiculturist for all of BC coming and sitting down and saying stuff. And it's just like, and then I try and remind myself, like, there's not another platform like mine though. Mm-hmm. Like that he could just go on. It's not like there's competition in the long form conversation space that I'm up against.
Yeah.
But it's hard to show that differentiation. Like, I would love to interview, like, Jody Wilson-Raybould. But I don't know what the appetite is for average people to want to tune into that. Like, I don't know what her viewership is. It's the trip about, like, Obama was going to start a podcast. And then Spotify was like, we're not paying for that. Because your audience will like a post on Twitter or will galvanize around an issue. But they're not just sitting down to hear your thoughts on things. And that's been the trip, is, like, who's... knowing the numbers and seeing who really has pull and who doesn't has been surprising, because the people I go, this one's going to hit, it's going to explode, have been like, oh, well, I thought it was going to hit because I think you're a really interesting person. And
that's how it goes. Have you been able to like pinpoint a certain type of, I don't want to say subject, but like guest or issue or something that usually does better than another, or is
politics? Politics seems to be the pull for most people.
I can see that.
I can, depending on how I phrase it, politics can pull. And I think just like all, like I think a criminological audience, because I did criminology, and so a lot of the people I know did the criminology degree with me, and so they've been a huge audience of like consistent listeners. And so when I bring on like a Daryl Plekas, who's got a background in criminology, called out corruption, his episode killed. And I had no idea.
I did criminology too, and I remember Daryl Plekas from there.
Yeah. And so you did criminology? Yeah. How did we not talk about that?
I don't know. I you know what? I
blew my mind.
I pulled the plug early. I never finished it.
Okay. But you did it at UFE?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's some of your professors that you remember?
Oh God, it was a long time ago. I'm like 10 years older than you, aren't I?
I don't know.
How old are you?
26.
I'm 36, so 10 years older than you.
Right.
Let's see. I remember Daryl Plekas.
John Martin.
I know of John Martin. I'd never took a class with him.
Okay. Annette Vogue.
No.
Brian. I don't know what his last name is. Brian Foote.
No.
Mm-hmm. John Haidt.
No.
Reagan Haidt.
No.
Simon Thompson. He was the criminal law.
I had him for one class.
Kevin Burke.
That I mostly slept through.
I had John Haidt on, and he's really interested in marijuana legalization. And I fell asleep in his class, and we talked about it.
Did you? That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I told him that, like, he was one of those people who's like, you can be more than you are, and you're just not. And it's a shame. And not having like a father, that was like a big, like, oh, like you don't think you're capable of more usually. Like, you don't think about it. Yeah. And so you're slacking, you're getting through life. And then somebody comes along and says that, and it's like inspirational in a way. And it's like I almost needed him to think that I was a failure in order to get motivated because of it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
The thing with that, like, 20s, like that period of your, like, even when you're in school and stuff, unless you're like some wicked student, you're still like an idiot kid when you start going to college. Yeah. And then it's like ending this like high school, this like idiot phase, and then you're supposed to be like an adult, and it's, I don't know, I found it to be a hard transition. Like, I still, like, I got good grades and stuff in university, not in high school, but I found, like, looking back now, I was still an idiot, like, well into my 20s. like you're not like finish high school and you're an adult. Yeah. Or I guess
there's some people who get old and they're still in a high school mentality.
You know, that's actually a good point.
Yeah. So, even going to like I went to this Purple Haze event, and people were really cool there, but it was a trip being on, like, we were driving a bus up to Columbia Valley, and almost everyone on the bus was like 40 plus, and they were acting like hooligans, and I was this 26-year-old trying to be like, okay, we're getting on the bus now, like, we need to not destroy the bus. And like, it was just interesting to see like grown adults like letting loose and doing it in the exact way that like high school students let loose. Yeah.
That's so funny.
It was a trip. It was like, it was weird because they were like respecting me as the adult in the room, and it's like, I'm 30 years younger than you, and so like this whole rule book of like how people are isn't the case.
Could literally be their kid. Yeah.
And I was just like, they were making like silly jokes, like, what did I say? I was like, we were giving out these tokens, and I was like, okay, like, does everybody have their tokens? And then this like probably 65-year-old guy was like, no, I don't have any tokens. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, this is what elementary school, like, the shenanigans you're pulling right now is identical to that of like a kid being like, everybody get a cookie, and a kid being like, I can get a cookie. Like, it's the same.
It's classic.
Yeah, it's classic. Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah. So what made you do criminology? What, like, did you want to be a police officer? Where did that come from?
I thought about it at one point. I was like a horrible student, and it was kind of just the only thing that interested me. I think there was like touching on some criminal stuff in one of my social studies class in high school. I kind of hit a point where I was such a crappy high school student that I realized that I needed to actually figure out what I wanted to do, or I was just going to be like doing nothing. Why
do you think you were a crappy high school student?
I just wasn't like dedicated, bad grades, not really. I don't know. I wasn't really going anywhere. So just like a lot of drinking and crap. So
was that like were your parents good to you, or just didn't have high, like, where
it was just, I don't know what it was. I don't know if anything caused it. It was just, maybe it was bad friends or not bad friends, with the wrong group of friends or whatever. But yeah, I just skipping school and not really applying myself there. And then I kind of realized, you're in grade 12, you gotta figure this out in a hurry. So
what was your biggest takeaway from university? Was it like a turning point?
In university?
Yeah.
Some of it was interesting. If I went back, I would actually pursue the psychology end of it. I liked that kind of stuff more than the criminology.
Interesting.
I kind of found with criminology that it would be really useful if you wanted to be like a criminal researcher, or I don't know, just I think they're like, even for people who want to be cops, I think there's better courses that you could probably take, probably business psychology, something like that, than criminology itself. But I think if you wanted to research like criminal behavior, you have to do it.
Yeah, I liked criminology, not necessarily for like the things I learned, but for the disagree. We had like this room called the crim room, and me and like most of the students, there was like a core group of us, and we would go in there and we would debate legalization of like prostitution, marijuana, all the different like philosophies around crime, environmental crime, because like
those classes were fun.
Yeah, but like sitting around and like arguing with people, because like the one thing I didn't like was I was constantly used by professors and students as like, give us the indigenous opinion on this. And like I really resented that because I didn't have a lot of the experiences you'd want an indigenous person to have in order to speak on it. So like my grandmother went to Indian residential school, but I didn't. My mother went to the 60s group, but I didn't. I didn't grow up on reserve. So like some of the typical lived experiences that they'd be calling on, I didn't feel like I had, which is why I don't like the term white privilege either, is because it's too general to take into account. Like there are Caucasian people who grew up on reserve. There are people with just different experiences. And I know that only goes so far, but I just didn't like being used in that way. And then a lot of the arguments students would make was like, with the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the prison system, it's like the kind of philosophy was that they were just like, people just found an Indigenous person and put them in max prison. And it's like, that's not what happens.
Yeah.
It's like what usually happens is Indigenous people on reserve are more likely to commit violent crimes. Violent crimes puts you in a different category in where you're going to go in the prison system. And that's a challenge, is how do we bring down the violent nature of the offenses? It's not just assault. It's assault with a weapon. And so that puts you into a whole new category where there's harsher penalties. So being a native court worker has been a blast because I get to really help people kind of steer their life in a different direction. But I learned a lot more through people, like through debates, and I was like the most known for like debating. Like you could say that the sky was blue, and I'd be like, well, technically it's just the reflection of the water, and it's not actually blue. And so I always enjoyed that part of the criminology degree.
That's good. Is that something that you've always been good at, is debating, or is that something you could kind of hone through school and then
it was something I honed, but I've always been someone who will just disagree. And my partner always talks about how I'm a very disagreeable person.
That's good.
And super useful. I think I have sharpened it, so there's a purpose to it. But it's a utensil I don't get to use very often. So it's something like I've thought about doing, like hosting debates and being the moderator between the two, because I'd enjoy having someone who's extremely one-sided and extremely the other-sided, kind of clash it out. Like, what are your thoughts on the truckers? Do you have a position on that?
I mean, I'm not going to go and join them.
Yeah. Do they have a point?
I think initially they did.
Yeah.
It's hard to see. It's hard to say they're all like the same. I think maybe probably the core group that started organizing it had a big point to it, but I think there's a large amount of them that are there just kind of for the party aspect of it too. Yeah. So I think there's a mix.
Yeah. What about mandatory anything? Not one thing, but like there's this challenge we have, which is like, it feels like we're straw manning all the positions, which is like, I like Clint Hames, but basically what he said is anyone with a Canadian flag right now is on the wrong side of history.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that any movement should be able to kind of take the Canadian flag and make it associated with that thing, whether it's truckers or anything.
Yeah.
It should just be, if you want to fly a Canadian flag, you fly a Canadian flag and not be lumped into any group.
But that's how it's like, to me, that's how it's always been, which is like the Canadian flag will always be associated, like it's usually associated with good things. When we were like fighting in World War II, you hold up that Canadian flag, you're representing Canada, and wow, we were fighting this glorious war and fighting for freedoms and human rights, and so you don't care that everyone's associating it with that. It's only when it's something bad that you go, whoa, 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 you can't associate this with that. And it's your own perspective that it's bad. Because to me, regardless of who holds it up, they're trying to call you to what the flag is supposed to represent. And so in that position, they were arguing freedom. Now, whether or not our freedoms are actually in jeopardy, debatable. But that's what they were hypothetically holding it up for.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like we're in this, like I'd like to have someone pro-trucker and then someone anti-trucker. Let's have it. Let's hash it out. Let's try and figure out, is there anything that they did that was right?
Yeah.
Is it good just in a democracy that we have people disagree? Like to have one side and the other side.
You need to.
Yeah.
You need to have, well, like you're the disagreeable person. You need to have that devil's advocate. You always want to have that. It's the same, even criminal justice, even to have, you need defense lawyers to defend someone because they make the cops do their job.
See, I don't like the term devil's advocate as much. I like the term, have you heard of steel manning?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah. You said it, and then I listened to that podcast, and they talked about it a whole bunch. So, the Lex Friedman and the Bishop, I forget his name.
Yeah, so
and they talked about steel manning a lot in that one.
Yeah, Lex always calls his guest to steel man the position of the other side, which is like devil's advocate is often to me comparable to straw manning. Taking the general points that you've heard parroted from other people and not really, but really thinking about what their position is. And that's why it's hard for me to condemn truckers, be pro-truckers, because like there's merit to what they're saying. They're saying it absolutely imperfectly, but they're saying something. And if you just dismiss them, you're fixing nothing. And it seems like we don't have very many debates now.
Yeah, I feel so. They talked in. We were talking about the Huberman podcast, how people really attach their opinion and beliefs to who they are and are really offended if someone challenges it. And I think that's becoming more common, that people are less inclined to actually challenge people now. Yeah. And it's kind of unfortunate because
and judge from a background.
Yeah. Like I think that the trucker convoy are fighting for what they believe in, which is admirable. But it's one of those things like, who am I to say what they're fighting for is? Who are they to say what they're fighting for is right? It all comes down to opinion, and I don't think anyone will ever get to the bottom of it. Like it'll just be one of those things that kind of fades away for the next thing. Yeah,
and I think that there is another piece, which is like sort of what Joe Rogan touched on, which was like often in a conversation between the two of us, we might miss a point that somebody else could raise and be like, hey, but you guys forgot about this. And then it's like, fair enough. Like we're not analyzing. Like I don't have a piece of paper here that I'm reading off of. Like I thought of every perspective. Yeah. Somebody shows up with another opinion that we go, oh, well, if we had a thought of that, maybe we would have come to a different conclusion. But like podcasts, it's tough to do that, and you kind of judge like, oh, they didn't bring that up, they avoided this or something. It's like something like that. Yeah, and there's like the thing about absolutes too. Like just because I'm right doesn't mean you're wrong. Yeah. So it's, I don't know. There's like this tribalism thing where people, if you challenge them, they're, immediately pissed off, and not like, I don't think one conversation is ever going to change someone's mind, but you don't got to like attack someone because they don't agree with you. It doesn't matter. That was the trip. It was another interview with Mr. Rogan where he was talking about the danger with podcasts is they do wash away some of the bad things that someone's done. And he talked specifically about Alex. It was with the Lex Friedman and Joe Rogan interview, and how certain conversations can wash away some of the mistakes of the past. And I've thought about that. I've thought a lot about having certain people on who have made errors in judgment, and how just having the conversation, and if people listen to it, it sort of cleans their reputation. It's like putting it in the washing machine and washing those mistakes away because they owned it. And it's like, at what point are you washing away? Like, should someone like Alex Jones, who, like, can you imagine losing your kid in a school shooting and having someone for years accuse you of being like a faker and being paid to do this? And like, should we wash that person's reputation clean? Should he be able to have that be put in his past? That's a weird question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the answer to it.
I don't think there is an answer to that.
No.
It's one of those, like, you're basically asking at what point is something inexcusable.
Yeah.
Like, there's obviously going to be, a certain amount of things that you can do that you can own up to and be forgiven for. And then where is the line where you can't forgive someone? And obviously that line is subjective. Like, everyone's going to have a different line. So,
do you know Barry Neufeld here in Chilliwack?
I know the name.
Yeah, he's a school trustee.
Mm-hmm.
He's like,
I do know him now.
Yeah. And so, like, he's one of those people. It'd be fascinating to me personally to have a conversation with him. Like, for my own, I've heard so much terrible things about you, sir. Like, I want to understand, what is the merit to what you're talking about? It seems like you don't like people who are different. Mm-hmm. Seems like for a long time we've hated on those people who are different. Mm-hmm. And so, explain this. But there's a certain point at which it's almost like you're letting him off the hook for it if you have that conversation. And I think that's a challenge.
It's a risky move for you.
And then people will think I'm endorsing like, that's the challenge with the name. I've thought about the name a lot. Should I change it? Is it fruitful? Because then I can interview perhaps people I find interesting. Because I'm saying they act in a way that's bigger than themselves.
So you'd think of just going to the Aaron Pete podcast? APP?
I've thought about it. I want to be able to pass this on to someone, though, one day. I want to be able to... I've gained so much from the experience of talking to people.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a trip to know that I've spoken to ocean pollution experts, bee experts.
The bee expert one was awesome. I didn't expect to enjoy a bee expert, and I was more into it than I thought I was going to.
Man, Paul, what a mensch to come all the way out. He lives in for a fair distance away, and for him to come on and share his story, it was really cool. It was such a trip to be able to do that. So I feel like, as much as everybody jokes about, like, everybody has a podcast, it's like, it's a form of learning, though. Yeah. And it's a form of independent learning that is healthy. It gives you different thoughts. It gives you different perspectives on things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You should reach out to him. I was just talking about this as, like, totally beside. This is just an observation I've made recently. Probably it's only a regional thing.
Yeah.
There are next to no wasps this year anywhere.
Yeah, you're right.
And then there's bees everywhere again. And I think wasps eat bees. But
that's true. No, you're right.
I wonder what caused the wasps to disappear, and
the mosquitoes.
All the mosquitoes are.
I wonder what's up with it, because we know that's due to water levels. But you're right. All the spots. I don't know if you ever walk the.
We live in the same neighborhood now.
But we go to the Fraser River Trail. Okay. So we go we drive 30 minutes all the way across town to do the Fraser because it's so quiet. Like, this is sometimes quiet, but it can be really busy. So we'll go to the Fraser, and there's those gates. And then the wasps always live in there.
Yeah.
I've seen no wasps.
None.
Yeah, it's a trip.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Do you want to try the other one now?
Yeah.
What is it?
Oh, okay. So I'm no Scotch expert by any means, but this is, your Macallan's a Scotch too, actually. You were talking about whiskeys last time, and what whiskey, is there like a type of whiskey that you normally enjoy, like a bourbon or a Scotch or a rye or whatever?
Is this it?
Or like, is there a type of whiskey that you normally lean to?
This is like one of the first ones I've ever gotten.
It is? Oh, that's
and then I always do Jack Daniel's, the Honey Jack with Coke.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
So Jack Daniel's is, it's Kentucky bourbon. I think it's a bourbon.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an American whiskey. Yeah. And I was kind of trying to do a little bit of whiskey research before I came here because I was caught off guard last time. So I think so for I learned a bourbon needs to be 51% or higher corn. And made in America. Yeah. Huh. And then so these two are going to be Scotch, and Scotch needs to obviously be made in Scotland. And then there's so this is single malt. So the two words are independent of each other. So single means it's from a single distillery.
Wow.
And malt means that it's malted barley, which is like toasted barley.
What's barley?
Just a grain. So instead of corn
and grain.
But if it's a malt, then it's going to be all barley. is my understanding.
Oh.
Whereas the other ones can be...
So bourbon is the one with the corn.
So bourbon's 51%, like just majority corn,
Okay.
and then you can add grains to it.
Sure.
So this is going to be one distillery and just malted barley. And then you can have the other one's called single grain, and it would be any mix of grains other than barley.
And so what did the Macallan taste like to you? And don't use the fake words.
I don't know that. I'm like, this is like all research I did today is to get my whiskey knowledge up. It was good. I
had a bit of sweetness.
It did, and it wasn't all that smoky. I think this might be a little bit smokier.
Ooh.
I like the really smoky ones, but not everyone's into it, but let's give it a go.
Awesome. I'm excited. I'm just going to quickly open the door because it's
roasting in here. Yeah. There we go. We'll give him a little bit more and get him talking. It's good because we live in the same neighborhood now that, my wife dropped me off, and then I can hop on that trail and literally walk home after this. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. What's her plans for the afternoon? Anything fun?
Hers?
Yeah.
No, she's gonna
relax,
I think. Yeah. It's we're having a rough go.
Fair enough. All right. What did you think of the first one?
I liked it. Oh, that's a little bit smokier. Yeah, it was very smooth. I don't know the words. Like, you ever see like a sommelier or like someone who's, I don't know, super into food, wine, whiskey, whatever, and they start talking about all these like undertones, and can they actually taste that, or are they like buzzwords that they're spitting out?
I would bet buzzwords, but the sheriff that I was mentioning to you, he was using all the words, and then he was calling out the BS. So I think it would be cool if we could do something with him, because I think that there's a certain level of genuineness coming from his knowledge. And as I said, he's thinking of starting a YouTube channel. So I'd love to try and do something, all three of us, where
we drink whiskey and just
talk about it.
I like that. Yeah.
Because he had a little bit of equipment, and then I think he was impacted by floods or something and he lost it. So he might lack the equipment, but he has the knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest challenge for so many is the post-production. Like
it's hard.
Yeah.
Post-production's hard.
Yeah.
But it's the last thing you think about when you're getting into it too.
Yeah.
Well, think about your process, like just how much it's changed post-production since you started.
Yeah.
I know mine was, and every little I would imagine that you chop up your episodes probably less than I do. Like you like to go 3 hours and kind of leave it unabridged, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would imagine you leave out, like I had a bunch of dead air while I was looking on my phone earlier. So I imagine you cut out some of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I write a script. Like I have boatloads of scripts on my phone, and this is a technique that I saw on. I actually did a Skillshare course by a top YouTuber, and this is his process. So you write a script, and then actually it's pretty good in bold. You write all the script while your face is on camera in bold, and then non-bold is when you put B-roll in. So then you know where your B-roll is. So before I make a YouTube video, I write my whole script, and then I look where I want to put B-roll, and I kind of make it not bold, and then I put just in brackets what my B-roll is going to be, and then that by the end of it makes your shot list, so you know what you got to shoot. And then I sit, and I me recording is going, I look at my phone, I put it here, like under my desk, and then I say my line, and then I go like this, and I say my line, and then when it's non-bold, then I can sit and talk like this, and I know I'm not on camera, and it doesn't matter, and I can go through the whole thing.
Wow.
But then after the fact, I'll do a bunch of takes because I'm not memorizing the script, or you say a bunch of things. Like intros are always bad. Like I have a whole bunch of shitty intros of me just trying to start a video.
Yeah.
And then my post-production is mostly cutting out all the crap. I'll shoot for probably an hour, and then I'm trying to cut it down to somewhere around 10 minutes.
Right.
And so my post-production, any little secret I can come across, some people are really good about key bindings and commands and stuff on their keyboard. I found this command that deletes everything. Like you put your little like cursor in the timeline, it deletes everything before or everything after. And that was game changing for me where you're just like, okay, cut this out, and then like just nerding out over like post-production. I've found that I love post-production now because there's so much like so many dumb little tricks that you can learn, and it's so like, oh my god, this is gonna save me so much time when you learn them.
Yeah.
So I went from hating it and sucking at it. I still suck at it, but I suck less at it, and I've learned some tricks, and I kind of enjoy it now.
Yeah, I don't know the feeling. I hate post-production because it's like...
Do you really?
Because it's like, it's going back between, and like, I want to find a way, but there's no clear way yet. So like, in my last interview with Joel Backen, I was able to have like a third camera angle, and it was like an overlooking both. I loved it. There's no way to do it because the video cameras are a certain distance away, and if I put them farther back and zoom in, you lose quality.
I want you to get a top down. Top down would be so good.
That would be a trip. But I like the one of like seeing both of us sitting here.
Yeah.
It's nice because then I don't have to stress as much about going back and forth.
Yeah.
Quality is a little bit better. The challenge with these video cameras is if I go up from this place to another one, it's like $1,000 a video camera, and so like the jump up is steep. So it's $2,000 for new video cameras. Where I bought each of these for like $350, something like that. So like $700 total.
Yeah.
So it was like, it's like a tough sell. And then just going through, and like some interviews I talk more, and some interviews I talk way less. And so that's a trip too, to see. And then I've had arguments that I need to talk more.
Yeah.
Because part of it is like they're tuning in to hear me ask questions. But when I started this, the thing was like, I'll just get out of your way. And like, I just think the community needs to hear from you. But then they're committing to that guest and not the podcast, if that makes sense. And so it's been like a back and forth in my mind, which is again, the temptation to switch to the Aaron Pete podcast or something like that, is because you're tuning in to hear me ask them questions.
Yeah.
Where I've sort of built the podcast around you're tuning in for the guest. But then that makes it very difficult to grow anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then once that guest is gone, nothing.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like hearing about it because it's so much different.
Yeah.
So much different than my experience. You're not wrong about the cameras though. Like they're stupid expensive.
Yeah.
And then also the lenses they come with are cheap. And then you got to upgrade the lens. So I just like upgraded the lens on my new camera, and it was like $500 just for the lens. And then are these 1080 or are they 4K?
1080.
Okay, so I was 1080 before and I jumped to 4K thinking it was brilliant. 4K footage is more than double the size of 1080 footage. So then storage becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Like every time I upload all my footage to my computer, it's like 100 gigs of footage.
Yeah.
Each time, each episode. And I'm like, I have a pretty nice computer. I haven't run out of space yet, but now I'm starting to think about my storage solutions here. And then you got to think about where to store it because you want to keep all your, I would imagine you want to keep all your original footage in case you ever need it. You probably won't. But.
Shout out to Stolo Archives because they've taken all my extra footage.
No way.
Yeah, they store
that's
all
wicked.
of it. They've given me, it's like a 5 terabyte.
Oh, that's amazing.
System. And so, yeah, I just get the storage thing, upload 4 months worth of podcasts,
that's
send
awesome.
it to them, and then I have a 2 terabyte system that I just keep everything on here.
Oh, I take it back then. You should go 4K.
Yeah, I would like to if I can afford to. It's the problem is I've got like a couple businesses brewing here, and I'm trying to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This is my love. It's so tough to see where I could take this.
Yeah.
That's my big challenge is like, I want it to be big, like go in the direction of the Lex Friedmans.
Yeah.
I don't know how they got there. Like, I don't know.
But they started here.
Yeah. But there's not like a clear path. Everybody paves their own path.
Yeah.
I don't know what my path is.
But I think you figure it out by just doing this thing.
Yeah, I'll just keep going. I'm not growing exponentially, where it's like clear to me where the takeoff point is. And again, I think the tough sell is the people I'm having on, like I could go to like a Zoom model and have on, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's one of the guys on CTV, and he does a brilliant job. I'm of course blanking on his name, the fault of this delicious whiskey. But he does Power Play, and he has two people on, and they debate things, and he sits there on CTV and asks them questions. And I think he's brilliant. I just don't know how to get there. Yeah. And it's not clear to me, as long as I have guests on just from BC, how to do that. Where I know I could reach out to people in Ontario, to people in the US, and have them over Zoom. But then personally, I feel like I lose something because I'm not really their friend. We don't really know each other.
Yeah. Well, there's something with a face-to-face conversation, too.
But that really limits growth, because if I have on... There's this lady in Ontario, and she said she'd come on, but it'd be a 30-minute interview. How much do I lose?
Because all yours are three hours. That's like your standard amount of time.
There's this brilliant guy who's here, he works at UFE. Brilliant. He's got his own podcast now, but didn't want to do more than an hour and a half. And I was like... we're not gonna jive in that time. And so it was like my personal friend, and I was just like, I get it, like you've got your own thing going, keep going, keep doing you, I support you, but I don't want to do that. And
I like that you stick to it though.
It was tough in the beginning, but once Lex talked about having on, I think it was Mark Zuckerberg, it was one of them, and he was like, I regret it, like I'll never do it again. And so like once he said that, it was like, you're giving me permission to do the same, which is to stick to the vision, but it really limits who's willing to come on. Some people think that they're going to go have success somewhere else, and it's like, fair enough. Yeah. But I do think I limit, because like, I don't want to do a 2-hour Zoom call with someone. Like, that's not going to be genuine. So how do I take this to the next level? It's unclear.
That's interesting. You'd have to get like a big display here to...
Yeah. Because the greats are doing it more distanced. Like before, it was like your laptop camera. Now they're getting better at having a little bit more distance and having the person kind of sit back and think about it more.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to like a money issue too. Like Joe Rogan can fly people out. That's not an issue.
Yeah.
But, smaller podcasts, I don't know. Like if you want to have guests on, then...
And reach, you have to think that it's worth your time. And there's...
Exactly.
Like the argument I would see from like Jody Wilson-Raybould's hypothetical publicist would be like, you're not bringing in 10,000 people listening to me. And so I don't know how, I'm like, I hate to be that person because I know Joe grew organically, but like Lex Friedman goes on the podcast, then starts his own podcast, then plugs his podcast on his podcast. Mm-hmm. Well, now you've got at least 10,000 people listening to you.
So we need you to go on Joe Rogan is what we need.
I don't know if I want to do that either.
Yeah.
Not because I don't admire Joe and I wouldn't love having a conversation. He's a person who's done so much that I don't want to just rely on him, because I admire the fact he did it himself so much. Like, it means so much to me that he's stood by. He's like, I've never advertised the podcast. I've never paid for marketing. I've never done those things. It's like, I admire you for that. I just don't know if people can do the same, because you've created the podcast world. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he created his, like he did build it from scratch, but he created his name long before he created his podcast. Mm-hmm. So he went into the podcast being a somebody.
But you saw his first podcast.
Oh, I don't know that I have, actually. I'm a recent
connoisseur.
Yeah, like I recently started listening to his podcast. I actually didn't.
He used to have snowflakes falling. It used to be a white wall, and there used to be snowflakes falling, and they used to just get trashed and sit there in front of like a laptop and talk shit.
Really?
And that was it. And that's how those were the first that's 100 episodes of the podcast.
That's funny.
Then he started having guests on. Then he started realizing these guests are like accredited people. Yeah. And this is crazy that I'm just sitting here. Then he started looking at like developing studio space and those things. But the first like at least 50 episodes were just him and his buddies getting high, talking shit.
Really?
Yeah. No quality, no concern about.
But he still does that a little bit now. Like it's there's balance now, it seems. Yeah. I wasn't the biggest Joe Rogan fan, to be honest. I thought he was kind of an idiot meathead, and then I think I listened to...
I think he'd still say that about himself, just to be clear. I think he'd still call himself an idiot meathead.
He might. I know he says that he's much smarter now than he's ever been just from talking to brilliant people.
Sure. Yeah.
I like that he brings on people that he doesn't necessarily agree with. But I started listening to him because he had on, I'm trying to think of who his guest was. It might have been Huberman. But he had on a guest that I liked, and then I was like, oh, that's
How
cool.
did you hear about someone like Huberman without...
I don't know how I came across Huberman. I started following him on Instagram, and then I started listening to his stuff, and then he works with the what's the doctor he works with? Sinclair, David Sinclair, yeah. And I started listening to David Sinclair's podcast. Who Huberman produces that one, and then go look at their on or wherever your podcast, but on Spotify.
Huberman produces.
Oh yeah. Here, I'm going to show you something. This is going to blow your mind. Because
David Sinclair, man, that guy's, if he's right,
he is
right, and we're going to be able to live longer, live healthier lives, do all of those things.
David Sinclair is brilliant.
Yeah. Such a thoughtful person, too. Well-spoken, articulate.
Look at his thumbnail. So that's Huberman's.
Yeah.
Now watch this.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Just wait. Look at David Sinclair's. It's the same thing. It's red. Yeah.
So it's the same company, but it's not Huberman producing.
I don't know. I think it's Huberman's people that were helping him.
Did you hear Huberman and Lex talk about their development of podcasts?
No.
Yeah, Huberman goes on walks and will sing music in order to get his voice in cadence to deliver the information.
Good for him.
If he's rushing through the song and he's slurring, then he needs to speed himself up. But if he's not keeping up, he needs to be faster.
Yeah.
And then if he's going too fast, then he needs to slow down. And he measures his podcast voice based on the songs and tries to develop in tune with that so that he's sharp and articulate so that it flows nicely for you to listen to. I don't obviously do solo podcasts, but it was just I admire the man for the process.
Solo podcasting's got to be tough. I've thought about doing a podcast for a long time, but even doing my solo thing is sometimes tough.
Just a podcast or a video podcast?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe video. I mean, that's a good question.
Thank you. It's a question I had to ask myself. It's
a good question. I mean, I guess I don't want to this is going to sound like I'm belittling you, but I can't imagine that adding video is much more work than podcast alone, is it?
I wouldn't say so. Particularly because with me, it depends. There's some people who produce a podcast, who are those people? The Did You Know people?
Yeah.
Those people? The Stuff You Should Know people, sorry. Not Did You Know, Stuff You Should Know.
Okay.
I think they do a lot of... I don't think they do video, but I think they do a lot of production in terms of the quality of the audio, so I think they sometimes do retakes. It depends on whether or not you're trying to do that, because things will obviously, if you do retakes, come across less authentic.
Yeah.
And so... with this, I don't view it as too much work, particularly shout out to Adobe Premiere Plus, because the process of cutting and switching back and forth has become so much easier. iMovie used to crash on me 20 times at an episode. And so it would take me a whole day to do the production on it. And I would just be exhausted and burnt out and hate it by the end of it. Where now with Adobe Premiere Plus, it's usually an hour to do the whole podcast.
That's pretty good for a 3-hour podcast.
Yeah.
I think mine probably takes me half an hour for 5 minutes of footage.
Wow. So
but I'm doing more cutting and stuff than you are, right?
And so your post-production is heavier than mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my episodes are shorter. I bet you our post-production and you're cutting less than I am is the thing. So I bet you our post-production probably is the same. Just my episodes are 10 minutes versus 3 hours. But I bet you we do probably the same amount of cutting and stuff then in those two time frames.
Yeah, I would be interested to know which one you prefer, because then you don't need to develop your own space. We can do something here. It's just that video element I do think adds something. Obviously, you can't really go make it big on YouTube or something without video. Like if you're just a voice.
But so on YouTube, then is having your full podcast on YouTube better or having clips?
No, better.
You think the full thing on YouTube's better?
Obviously.
What are your YouTube analytics like? Like, does any
better?
Are they
often better than my podcast analytics?
Interesting.
Because
do a lot of people, like, the challenge is I'm not reaching like a podcast audience the way you're reaching a leatherworking audience. Yeah. And so that challenge has been people, again, tune in for the guest more than they tune in just for the episode or just for the podcast in general. And so people know YouTube, where I feel like I'm pulling, and this is where it's like terrible, I'm pulling people who have never watched or listened to a podcast in their life, and I'm convincing them to tune in. And the challenge with that is they're not going to tune in again. And then it's super regional too, because
80% of my podcast is Canada.
Interesting.
And then 70% maybe, and then the US, and then Italy. Shout out to Italy.
Oh, really?
I have no idea why. I don't know what I did there, but
that's funny.
It's like 5 or 6% Italian.
Mine's US, Canada, and then India.
Yeah.
It's funny just seeing those stats and seeing who watches.
Yeah, I think the benefit is the US, because your pull in the US is going to be huge.
That's, I mean, most of the money I make from doing mine is from Amazon in the States. I don't even have a Canadian Amazon affiliates. Yeah. I just have Amazon.com.
And so that's the challenge, is so many of my guests obviously are Canadian. Unfortunately, probably not the best word. But that's the challenge with growth. Yeah. Is I think I could get on some rap artists that I really like if I pivoted that direction. But again, I would want a deeper relationship with them than I could get off of a Zoom call. Like if I get to, so like, I think I've sent you a few songs. Echo, Vinjay, they're a couple of my favorite artists. Yeah. If I had the chance to interview them, like, I would want it to be picture perfect. Same with, like, even though I don't like where he's going, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, like, I would want to, and like, that would be the reason I wouldn't do the Joe Rogan experience. Again, the odds that I ever be invited on is 0%. But the reason that I would avoid it is because I'd have so many questions for him. Yeah. I'd have no interest in talking about myself in that conversation. And it's 3 hours, and I know how fast 3 hours goes by my own
I do now too, yeah.
Yeah. And so to sit down with him, I'd have so many questions about like his journey and like how he keeps humility, like all those different questions about like, what is your process to have someone on? I research guests. Usually it takes me a couple of hours. Ironically, it's the part I usually hate the most. And then after I'm done, it's the part that I go, I needed to do that though.
I was going to ask how you get guests. Have you reached out to all of your guests, or have you had anyone reach out to you?
I actually resent people if they ask me.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's something I've struggled with internally. I don't like people asking to come on. And it's weird because I just interviewed Grace Kennedy, and she's a reporter, and she'll have people reach out with stories. Yeah. And I don't know if it's the disagreeable nature in me, but I have, and I know that I'm looking for something so specific that the odds that and this has just been my experience from the beginning, is people will be like, you should have my buddy Eddie on. And I'm like, who's your buddy Eddie? And they're like, and there's been people that are still left on, like, I'm waiting for a response, and it's been a year, it's been 2 years, who've been like, you should have this person on. And I'm like, can you send me an article that talks about what they've done, or any information about what they've accomplished, or the difference they've made, or how they're an admirable person? And they're like, I'll get back to you. And then they never reach out ever again. And it's like, that's how little the external person usually cares about what you're doing. Yeah. Is like, have this person on. And if it fails, if it doesn't work, and like, my protectiveness has been like, I need to be genuinely curious about what the person's saying. And so if I'm not excited about it, it's going to be a terrible interview.
You seem like you have like a really broad interest though. Like, you're not like, super narrowed, going after just like the same type of people every time. Like your guests that have been on here are so different from each other. It's crazy.
But they're all interested in what they're doing.
And that's your interest.
That my interest is the person's interest. And I can get on board. And that's why...
You just blew my mind a little bit.
That's what, like, I still talk about this. After the interview we did the first time, you were like, thank you for, like, actually taking an interest in what I do. Mm-hmm. And, like, when I heard that, it was such a trip, because it was like, of course. And then I was like, oh, no. We're in a world where so many people would have you on and be like, oh, so what do you do? Leather work? Like, explain that. And, like, maybe not be as curious about, like, the process. But I can really get invested.
Yeah, but it's clear that you've done your research beforehand, too. Not just with, like, I felt it with mine, but listening to you interview other people, it's very obvious that you've actually looked into it before they come in here. I have
a vision in my mind of the 3 hours, of what the first hour might look like, of what the second hour might look like, and what the third hour might look like.
Do you have, like, an outline?
No.
What's your process? Or
I write the questions out, so you saw the questions, but usually it's just kind of a feeling, and it can go any direction that it goes, but usually it will be... A lot of the time, it ends up just being their kind of chronological journey, which is like, oh, you were like a young person. How did that shape you? You were an older person. Now you're here. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll be, let's put the thing that's going to pull people in first. So with Joel, I think I started more with like his lawsuit of Twitter, because like, why are you suing Twitter? Sometimes I'll take it that route.
I haven't listened to that one yet, but that I've seen your Instagrams, and that's drawn me in. That's put it on my list of podcasts to listen to.
Which one did you like best? Just out of curiosity on the stories, did any of them stand out to you?
Of the suing Twitter one?
Yeah. Because I get like 100, 200 views on a story. Feels like it transitions into nothing.
Stories? I don't know that stories go anywhere.
Stories get sometimes more views.
But do they, like, I feel like they just, at least for me, mostly I'm skipping through stories.
I know.
And so, like, do those views mean anything?
Do any views
mean anything?
Yeah, I got 14,000 TikTok views on Girling Man's interview. Just not representative of all of what ended up occurring.
Man, people want, like...
I don't understand.
With Reels and TikTok and probably stories too, but Reels and TikTok, people want entertaining comment more than they want educational or thought-provoking content.
Or directional, like go here now and do X. Yeah.
Like, I have a bunch of Reels, and I started briefly doing just some, like, funny, stupid skits, kind of, I don't know, like leatherworking themed-ish or creator themed, but just goofy videos.
Yeah.
They've done better than any reel I've ever pushed out there.
Wow.
Than me actually working or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't result in anything, right?
Not really. I mean,
follows, but
I'm doing okay. I kind of have like steady follows on Instagram and steady follows on YouTube, where it's at a point where it's always growing by a certain amount, and then it goes up a little bit if I do certain things. Like I hate YouTube shorts. I hate doing them. But
I don't understand them. Why do you not allow music?
You can do music now.
No, you can do 15 seconds worth of branded music.
Okay, So I put one out, and then someone commented, I like the reel, but your music cuts out partway through.
15 seconds with branded music. And then you can go... So this has been the...
How is YouTube unable to do a minute of music, but TikTok and Instagram can? I don't understand that. Google's a bigger company, are they not?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't get it.
At least bigger than TikTok, and TikTok seems like they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's a super headache because YouTube, we've basically given up on music, because then I can upload a YouTube short, and then I can go onto it on the YouTube desktop and find unbranded music, like unowned, and then put something in. The whole process is terrible in comparison to Instagram and TikTok.
Oh yeah,
terrible.
I mean, I don't. Obviously, they're a big corporation and have brighter minds than me sitting there, but from where I'm sitting, I feel they should drop shorts and just focus on the long form content. That's their wheelhouse.
Yeah,
like who's the only one that is their competition is Vimeo. Vimeo's not really they're doing something different. They started trying to do the same thing and they're doing something different.
And they want you to take long form conversation, like the full things and turn them into shorts. And it's like, what do you guys do? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, but I will say this: they're rewarding people that do shorts because I made some reels. So I've been kind of neglecting my Instagram, which is a funny thing so my following on YouTube is to a point where my Instagram grows by about 10 people per day, regardless of what I do.
10 people?
Yeah.
That's really good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Or 5 to 10, I would say. But so Instagram's kind of where I started, though. So I've started putting stuff out on Instagram again. And so I made some reels. And then I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to make these, then I'm going to put them out on TikTok just because it's the same thing. So I put them out on TikTok. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put them out on YouTube as well, just because I made them. So I may as well put them out where I can. So I have 3 reels that I did last week and I put them out on YouTube. And those 3 days, all of my analytics went up.
Yeah.
My views all went up, my subscribers all went up, and my revenue went up each day. And it's up higher now than it was before putting out the shorts. So
shorts have been good to me more recently as well.
So you are getting rewarded for putting them out.
Subscribers, yeah. I'm at 175 subscribers now.
That's good, man. Your first 100 subscribers are the hardest ones.
My second 75 have been the hardest.
Have they really?
I got stuck at like 130 for so long. Though dropping one a week has been good, and then the more political conversations have done well for me. I just feel tortured by that because part of me wants to just interview political people because I find politics interesting.
Yeah.
And then the other part of me is like, I don't want to have on disingenuous people.
Okay, so if you were not to do... So say you were like Joe Rogan scale where you could have anyone on that you wanted, and that wasn't an issue where you would have to like Skype someone in or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you could just do any kind of podcast, what would you be doing? Just
talking to people.
Just same thing?
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything about the product.
Would you be strategic about like who you brought on and locations, or would it just be like, oh, I see this person and I like what they're doing, I want them on? Or would you like try to pick like from different places to bring in a broader audience?
No, I think I would still be as random as I am with the audience. Right. The only thing that pushes pressure on me in terms of anything is like I'm taking time away from my partner.
Yes.
And that's the hardest part. Yes. Is like you get to see growth and you get to, like, maybe your wife doesn't love it, but she goes, well, at least he's succeeding. At least he's growing and developing. And it's not that I'm not. It's just that it's tougher because people keep asking, like, are you a Chilliwack-based podcast? And it's like, I pigeonhole myself, but it's because, like I said 6 months ago, I was going to stop having on people from Chilliwack. Well, then they need to stop being so interesting to me. Because I find people within this area so interesting and I enjoy the conversations and I feel pressured to see more growth because I'm apart from her. And that's the tortured element is like...
I could see that. Yeah,
I want to see growth so that this is a worthwhile endeavor. So it's not like I'm just spinning my tires. And that's, I think, the trap that I'm in right now. Because like Shayla Rain wrote, I don't think I have it out, but she wrote The Way Creator Sees You. Mm-hmm. Name is inspired by her looking at her partner one night and saying, do you see yourself the way Creator sees you? And super emotional question, a lot of love in the question, and then made this book around the fact that she was judged for the color of her skin, that she was bullied, and then when the bully was taught a lesson, she got in trouble for it. And so this whole idea of like being comfortable with yourself, seeing the value in just being a human being, it reminded me of Andrew Victor, who's a pastor, and he's like, you can see the beauty in a sunset, but so rarely can you see the beauty in another person. And super inspirational. So like it's not like I could get a better guest. Yeah. It's like, but the guest often has not reciprocated in trying to get the word out. And that's where I feel more trapped is like oftentimes like Joel, super nice guy, said he was going to promote it, hasn't retweeted, reposted, and so I can't reach your audience. The people who followed you this far, who want to hear your thoughts, often don't share or promote it or co-promote it or get it out to their audience.
I see.
Yeah.
That's almost a detriment to them is not sharing that. Like, it's like content that they had to go there and record it, but then you do all the heavy lifting and the post-production and all that stuff, and they just really got to retweet or send something out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird, unfortunate.
That's the weird space. And some people have a poll just based on their name.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
That's the only thing I'd change is like, I just wish there was a way to get the word out in a better way because I'm on all of the platforms. And for the most part, I think I do pretty good on the platforms. It just doesn't result in anything.
Yeah.
Like I think I could stop posting on all the social media platforms and I don't think anything would change. I think the people who are listening are the people who are listening. And then they share it with their friends and stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah. How's the whiskey?
It's good. I was going to ask you, that was my next question for you, is what do you think of the two whiskeys, starting with the Macallan?
The Macallan, I think, is smoother.
It is.
This one is stronger, but it tastes more like whiskey that you'd think of. Like you think of whiskey, I feel like you think of Aberlour.
Yeah.
The bottle also looks more whiskey-like in the Aberlour. For those of you just listening, or for those of you actually watching, it looks more. Like
this is two guys that don't know what they're talking about.
Anything,
trying to describe.
The problem with the Macallan is they put a QR code.
Oh no!
On their product,
they got too big.
They're too big. They've got their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and it's like I get it. I get what you guys trying to grow a business, but when people think of whiskey, they don't think of Instagram.
No, that's true.
No.
Have you ever gone to, there's this festival in Vancouver, the Hopscotch Festival?
No.
Oh, dude, we should go to that. So Hopscotch, it's beer and whiskey.
Yeah.
Hopscotch, yeah.
Wow, I just got it.
But, so you go and you get, you pay so much money, you get these little tokens, and then you wander through and there's vendors and, a beer is so many tokens or little shots of whiskey are so many tokens. And it's actually really cool because it gives you this opportunity to try really expensive scotches or whiskeys that I don't know about you, but I'm not spending $400 on a bottle of whiskey.
True.
But I can spend $10 for a tiny little taste of it. And so it lets you go and do that. And there's some really, really good scotches and actually there were some really good beers there too, but mostly beers that I had because beer is a little more accessible.
Yeah.
It's not as expensive.
Have you tried Old Yale?
I like Old Yale.
Yeah.
You're not a beer guy, are you?
Not a crazy one, but we had some at the Purple Haze event.
Yeah.
And my partner liked the beer more than she liked the wine.
Interesting.
Nobody saw that coming.
I like Old Yale. I really like their vibe and everything. They're like kind of camping. It suits Chilliwack really well.
Yeah.
And I find their beers, their normal baseline beers that they have all year round, I find them kind of just boring. But they do these special release ones. They do fresh hop ones, and they come out with a few. They had this one that was it was a what the hell was it? It was a banana bread porter or something.
Wow.
And there's no banana in it, but they picked certain grains that made it. It was so good. So their special release beers are so really good, but their baseline I just find super boring. Their food is amazing, their vibe's good, but
she liked the peach one, I think.
And I think that's a special one. Yeah,
is it?
I don't think that's a normal one.
No, you might be right because she tried to pick some up, and we couldn't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That farmhouse is so good.
Their pizza, man.
Oh god.
What? Oh, you should have been there though. We just had at that Purple Haze event barbecue bourbon pizza. It was on another level. Oh, and we got to try Buffalo Trace bourbon.
I like Buffalo Trace.
Have you had it?
I have.
I was gonna try and pick some up before this.
Well, I live down the street from you now, so there's plenty of time. Yeah. I actually came here. I kind of was like, oh, we might shoot something. I thought we were just bullshitting. So this is totally off the cuff. I didn't do anything.
Oh, I'm glad. I didn't want it to be anything dramatic. I want to start being able to have people back on where there's no stress.
It's funny, the first time there is a little bit of stress coming on, and having never been on a podcast before. And
really, can you tell me about that? Because I never get to hear from the guest what it's like to be a guest.
Yeah,
I never get to hear.
So and I'm on camera, so I don't like being on camera. So I am on camera normally, and there's some level of stress that I put myself under to go on camera, even though I don't like it, but I like the end. I don't know. But you invited me on, and you and I have been buddies, online for a long time. So I was happy to come on, and then there's a little bit of stress coming on, and it's just not knowing what you're going to ask, and then going back to like what we were talking about, like having an opinion and people getting bent out of shape about it. There's like this thing, like, what if I say something here completely nonchalant that offends someone with a big following that like screws up my whole thing? Like, what if I say something dumb? Like, even like you were asking about the truckers earlier, and I'm like, do I want to answer? Like, it's one of those things where it's almost like bad to have an opinion these days.
I agree.
And so there's like, obviously I knew you, and I knew you wouldn't put me in a position that's like bad, but there's like that fear a little bit. And then I came on, and we, had some whiskey and bullshit, and it was a good time. And
was it better than you expected?
Yeah, like it still blows my mind how 3 hours went. Like I imagine we're probably like an hour and a half or 2 hours in now, and it feels like 10 minutes.
Yeah, an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So.
And your wife listened to it. That blew my mind. I feel like most guests' partners like never find out, but the fact that she reached out and she was like, it was good.
It was weird. She works from home about half the time, and I went up into the office after I put my daughter down, and I heard my voice. Like, I can hear my voice, like you and I talking. I'm like, oh God, don't listen to that. But yeah, it was good. I was actually pleased, and I had a lot of people reached out to me, said that it was good, and they liked, hearing me talk about stuff other than leather.
Yeah, you're just an interesting person.
I wouldn't go that far.
But I would go that far. Yeah, it was a trip to have her enjoy it and actually tune in. But it also made me think about how like creators are often so not like overlapping. Like they don't collaborate together with other creators.
Yeah.
And like it's so, even though like you have like a good Instagram community, that there isn't like collabs, like constant collabs. And how rare. Like I had Matthew Hawkins on, he has his own podcast. I don't think he's started it back up again yet, but like we haven't collab. Like the culture of collaboration between other podcasters was something I was like, in my mind, I was like, I'm probably gonna like work with other podcasters, learn about how they do things.
And it just doesn't exist.
I've had multiple podcast hosts on and never been invited on to somebody else's thing. Yeah. And so, like, I'm not offended. That doesn't hurt my feelings. But it's interesting to me that I look at, and I think there's just an instinct. Joe Rogan talks about this as well, like of competition.
Yeah.
That like this neuroscientist who has his own podcast, that if he comes on my podcast, I'm taking something from him, or so, like there's this feeling that like we're in competition. And I don't believe that. I believe the more people as a whole listening to podcasts, the better our culture is, because the odds that these people are reading books and educating themselves through reading is not great, according to like Statistics Canada, which says we have like a C- in literacy.
That blew my mind on the last one too, and I still can't get my head around that. That's crazy.
And so like finding that out, it gets me so like, I want people to tune in to a podcast. Like I had Shelley Canning, she's a nurse. We talk about nursing. She has her own podcast. Had her on. I've had like 3 or 4 podcast hosts, and like there's not like a culture of like, oh, you had me on, I'll have you on, or oh, like I know this person, you should go on this pod. Like there's not like that collaborative nature
Now that you've said that, they're all going to reach out to you and ask you. I meant to. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I totally forgot.
Yeah. I don't. It seems like it's the same in YouTube world though. Like the people you work with, at least other than that one person who's really been like a mentor to you in the leatherworking space, it's not like that.
Yeah. And he's not doing the YouTube thing. He's gone a more profitable route, but
he's making stuff now, right?
Like, he makes stuff, and then he actually has gone as far as he found a place in the States that he can send leather to, and they make stuff for him, and then he distributes at a bigger level. Still, like, it's past handmade, like it's machine made in factories, but still like better quality than you would get at like Walmart or something like that. Like it's still. He sources the leather and sends it to them and sends his designs to them, and they still make it. But it's not him making it.
But why don't you and the guy from Lillooet do something?
I would love to, Sid. He's an awesome guy.
Like I just don't
I actually he came out here because he's down here
a fair bit.
Somewhat often, and just he reached out to me, and when he did, I was busy, but we will for sure at some point.
Yeah.
He's an awesome guy. He's super interesting.
Absolutely. He's commented on a ton of my videos being like, I need to go check out that food truck or whatever.
Yeah, that's when you should have my buddy Sid on your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a new elected chief in Lillooet there.
I know. Yeah. Him and I actually went back and forth quite a bit.
Did you?
Talked about things after our interview, and he was one of the people who was like, that was a really good podcast, learned a lot, super thoughtful person. And again, which was like just a trip, because usually it's just like into the abyss.
Yeah. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to see you have him on.
Yeah. Now he's on my radar.
Yeah, but are you going to reject him because I said it?
No. No, there's certain people who care, and there's certain people who say it out of pity for the person, like a certain level of carelessness. I don't know how to put it, but there's certain you should have this person on. And it's like, you don't have to imagine, like, just because someone's interesting to you, or just because you think someone's admirable, doesn't mean that you can portray that to me. And the laziness of just being like, you should have this person on. Like, I need like a whole understanding of what you saw, how you saw it, and that's where people go, that's too much work. And it's like, then why did you reach out to me? Like, if that's the line, is like explaining yourself. That seems silly.
That's funny.
Yeah.
People don't like to do work, man.
But this is like you're saying, you're the one, like, I was just reached out to, and they were like, you should have this person on. And it's like, lay it out to me. Give me the deets. I'm not opposed, but that's where I think my skepticalness to it has come about, is like, people don't seem to care about what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Like
the average person doesn't, the average person who just says you should have this person on doesn't really care about the quality or the final product, and they don't know about any of the process. Yeah. So they don't care. Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that your market too? You want people that care about podcasts, and
that's what I think I said this in the last conversation, is like, I had people say like 2 to 3 hours is too long. And it's like, well, you're not my audience. Like, I'm not looking for you. If you're complaining about the length or anything like that, then
I have this, he's a leatherworking buddy. He's in California, and he's started a maker's podcast. He calls it Wake and Make, which I thought was pretty clever.
Oh, that is good.
But he saw me on your podcast because he listened to it too, and he was like, it was really good. I feel like 3 hours is a long time. And I said, well, 3 hours is a long time, and he knows that it's a long time, but that's what he wants to do. Yeah. And he said, oh, well, then I respect it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, he's just doing what he wants to do. Like, there are some rules, or not rules, best practices, say. But at some point, you just got to do what you want to do too. Like, how much do you want to just like go with the flow?
Yeah.
You have to a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But at some point, you need to be yourself too. And like, yeah, the 3 hour podcast is, you're not going to get more in depth than that.
Yeah. And I think just like having like interesting discussions, like so many things are rushed.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like, is it's interesting to just like, this one's particularly interesting because I didn't bring in a mindset of like 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour. It's like, whenever we want to stop, we can stop. But I just want to be able to hear and enjoy. And it's part of my jealousy towards Mr. Rogan is sometimes it's just fun. And I do look at some of the episodes because I try and re-listen to every single episode at least once, if not multiple times, to figure out what could I have done better, what could I have done differently. And there's a certain culture lacking from the podcast, a certain fun element where, like, when he has on, what's his name? He's like one of my favorite people to have on, but he's Duncan Trussell. Those are just the most nonsensical, and I love it, and I'm laughing the entire time.
Really?
And have you ever heard him with Duncan Trussell?
No, so I don't even know who Duncan Trussell is.
Oh, they dress up.
What?
They dress up. What was a lot? They dressed up like spacemen.
That's so funny. Is it a comedian or?
Yeah. Duncan Trussell's a comedian, but they did Joe Rogan Joe Rogan Questions Everything. The series. Did you ever see that?
I heard of it. I don't know that.
Okay, so they did like research into whether Sasquatch is real, and he did that with Duncan. And so Duncan's got this hilarious voice, and he gets all high pitch about things when he starts laughing, and it's so fun. And he'll play like the 3D chess of like, oh, you think like Nancy Pelosi's the bad person?
Yeah.
Well, it's actually like this other organized, and he just like levels up, and like, some of it is absolute nonsense, and some of it is like, you didn't even think of it like that. You didn't even think that it would go that, but it's just they're so funny. They get high. They just act silly.
That's awesome.
And it makes you, like, the reason I started listening to him regularly was his Fight Companions and his Sober October. If you ever heard of those.
I did, yeah.
I started becoming a daily listener because he'd be like, we're competing and like we're doing this, and like I just did 10,000 of this today, and it like that's what I want to bring. So I was talking to Adam Gibson about it, like of doing, I'd like to do an ultra marathon, and I'd like to do something around the podcast around it, of making it like people are tuning in daily to hear where we're at in this ultra marathon competition, or with this competition.
How far of an ultra marathon?
Like I'm thinking like at least 100K, but I'd just like to do something where people can get involved as well. Because that's what the Fight Companion or the Sober October was for me. I was tuning in, and they were all competing with each other, and they were trying to get a certain amount of like steps and points in, and so they were kind of going crazy. And that's where I was like, I want to get fit, and they're getting fit, and I want to get involved. And so there was like an investment that I had into what they were doing, and it created a community. That's cool. I think that's where he really saw his takeoff, was the community spirit that he created through that, of saying like, you might do yoga, you might bike, you might run, but you're all hearing him push himself and say like, oh, like Ari Shafir's got like already this amount of steps, and I've got to go get mine, and like, and then you're like, oh, I've got to go get mine, and like there was a community element, and I think that's what the podcast is missing, is like a sense of community, of like, I wonder how hard Aaron ran today, because I'm sure you've seen the videos I'm doing of like me running.
Yes,
I'm trying to inspire people to reach their full potential. That is what, if I can give listeners anything, it's like, no matter what it is, if you're crocheting, if you're beading, if you're making leather work, I want you to know I'm on your side about that. That I want you to go do that to the best of your ability. Yeah. Which is why preparing for someone like yourself was important to me, because I think we often, to our own detriment, underestimate people's interests. And go, that's just a hobby. That could be your career. If you want to put in the work, if you want to grow that, it can be whatever the fuck you want it to be. Oh, yeah. But we often go, oh, your art, oh, that's nice, but, you know, like, keep your day job. And I want people to know I'm on the side of them doing whatever brings them meaning to their life. And I think so many people lack that, even though we did so much in the 20th century to get to that point of saying you can do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. And if anyone stands in your way, fuck them, you can do it. And I think we've put in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And that wasn't just so you can sit around and watch TV. It was so you could go do whatever you want. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's like these hobbies, though, like whether you make it your career or not, it's a good example I was just thinking of. So before I came here, I went to that art walk thing. So for non-Chilliwack people, there's a park
for the Italians,
like 100 meters, or how many feet is 100 meters? Some amount of feet, or 100 meters that way. There's a big park, and they have a big art walk today, and there's a bunch of tents of artists and stuff. And we were walking along, and Lucas Simpson was painting a door there and doing a mural thing on a door. And we asked...
Showed it to Lucas. He was on the podcast.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My wife works for Simpson Notaries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But saw him. And
that was Jackie Simpson hosted Purple Haze. Shout out to Jackie Simpson.
That's hilarious. But we saw him, and my wife said, "Hey, Lucas, what are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just in my happy place." And that's like people doing that stuff, whatever it is, like painting a door or making leather or watching bees or birds or whatever the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
That's your happy place. So whether you make it profitable or not, or even yourself, like just like talking to people, it seems like that's what you want to be doing anyway. That's your happy place. Like that's, aside from I'm keeping you from Rebecca right now, this is what you want to be doing otherwise.
But we'll listen to this afterwards. Like her and I go for walks and we listen to the podcast together.
Oh, and Rebecca, if you're listening, take that high-pitched voice that Aaron spoke in and make that a story. Please blow that up.
You have to hear Duncan Trussell because I did my best to read it. Yeah.
It'd be so good. But it's like what people want to be doing. So and you need, I know, some kind of escape. Money's not everything either. Like it's nice to make money from your hobby. I make a little bit. I basically make enough money to buy some leather tools and leather at this
keep
point.
Going. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's self-sustaining now.
It is. I'm not getting rich. I work a very full-time job otherwise, but that's what I want to be doing and being on YouTube. Being on YouTube, honestly, I almost like doing YouTube more than I like doing the leather, which is kind of funny.
Right.
Although I haven't posted in a couple months now, but I'm working on some stuff. But it's, I don't know. I really like doing the YouTube stuff.
Okay, tell me about it. What would we, if we were to do something, if we were to accomplish something, what would that look like? Because we've talked about it online before, but we didn't really talk about it in person. And
if you and I were?
Yeah.
I think we would do this. I think we would just bullshit about whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really talk about politics, though.
Yeah.
I'm not a politic guy.
We've got municipal elections coming up, man. They're super interesting. Can you imagine drinking and talking about our upcoming elections? And the mess?
You know what? Politic thing, and again, this is like pigeonholing you even more because this is Chilliwack, but is it Matt Waddington that owns Waddington's when he ran? Sam Waddington. I'm sorry, Sam.
Yeah.
When he ran, though, fuck, I wanted him to see him get it. It would have been so good.
How did you feel about when...
I was kind of disappointed.
Yeah, that seems like the political... But that's what happens in politics.
But, again, going back to, like, owning things and apologizing, is that inexcusable? Like,
no, but he didn't do either.
That's true.
He denied it.
That's the opposite of what
he not either of those things.
Yeah. Sucks to be him, but it would have been cool to see someone that young and running a business, and I don't know, someone just like different than like.
So which scandal were we just talking about?
The money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he had a sexual assault scandal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, that was what brought him down. I'm pretty sure.
I thought the money was.
The money was, pretty terrible, but the...
I don't really want to see him get in then.
Okay.
No. I knew the money one. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, the money one was weird because I was hearing about it before. Like, I was hearing it from people that, like, he'd go around and be like, this is on the city of Chilliwack.
What?
Yeah. And he'd say that at, like, bars and stuff.
That's super weird.
The one I didn't see coming...
Why would you do that?
I don't think people ever think they're going to get caught for what they do. I think that's the normal criminal element. Like, that's the whole challenge. Like, so we had, like, being a criminology student, we had this whole mandatory minimum thing. And then people were like, wow, like, mandatory minimums, that'll work because that'll intimidate. But the problem is, criminals never think they're going to get caught. So it doesn't matter if it's 10 million years in jail. Exactly. They think they're not going to get caught.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so that was the challenge.
Interesting. Oh, that's unfortunate. I didn't know about that. That's sad.
He's not been, to make sure that my legal perspective, he's not been found guilty, from my knowledge, of anything. But those were the allegations.
Oh, it was allegations.
Yeah. And to his point, I'm pretty sure he said something like, there's an incentive, you don't want me to win, there's all these things. And who knows? I think he's regained a lot of his respect. He's an honest businessman.
Mm-hmm.
I think just that authority and the decisions you make in those roles can really bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sad.
I'd like to do one on, I just heard terrible things about local whiskey and because it's rye here, right?
Yeah, which means that it's 51% or higher.
Corn?
Rye as the grain.
Oh.
Yeah, see, I did my research before I came.
Can we agree that rye sounds like the grossest sounding, like bourbon? Sounds delicious.
Rye is like, you're not wrong. Rye is probably the
It's the worst word.
It's
a terrible word.
It's not the best whiskey either.
I believe you, but even the word itself, it's like if you're gonna have someone want to be proud to drink something, bourbon or rye, like it just doesn't sound.
It's good with ginger ale.
I don't know.
On its own, I don't know. I've had rye by itself. There's a few good ones. There's actually a couple good Canadian ones, but honestly, yeah, I lean more towards Scotch or bourbon. Irish whiskey's pretty good too.
Because the only people that I know of that I follow are people who at least occasionally comment on politics.
Interesting.
I don't know of any people who just drink whiskey and talk about nothing.
We could be the first. We could pioneer that.
Yeah.
Just idiots talking about whatever, drinking too much whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
What's the length? What is your mindset around podcasts? Because you're right.
I'm torn. So my perspective doesn't necessarily mean anything because I'm not doing a podcast.
Right.
So I don't know, because we have such different experiences on YouTube anyway. I'm obviously not in all the areas that you're in, but YouTube wise, I would imagine that a 3-hour video on YouTube would not do as well as segments like Joe Rogan does.
Yeah.
I feel like segments.
But he used to do it live.
I know.
On YouTube.
That's crazy.
I really like that. I kind of dream of doing live on YouTube.
Live scares me.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just a little bit.
I'm a little more disagreeable. I like the idea of live. You've never listened to Ariel Helwani, have you?
No.
Okay, he does 4 hours.
Wow.
YouTube. Twice a week.
Wow.
Yeah. Talking to fighters.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I was going to try and convince you to stay on for the UFC fights tonight.
I gotta be up at 4 a.m. tomorrow.
But Amanda Nunes trying to get her belt back.
I know.
Yeah.
Not this. What was the next big fight we were talking about? Is
that one's
September or something.
Yeah, September, October. But that's the one with Sean O'Malley versus Peter Yan. That one's gonna be killer.
Yes.
That one's gonna be. Don't remember the whole fight card, but it's an amazing fight.
Yeah,
card.
We'll do that one for sure.
Okay.
But
I've thought about doing fight companions for that. It would be weird. I don't know. Like those are weird, but like just watching it like Joe does.
So if you were to do this other thing, would you pivot your show into something different, or would you start a second one and then obviously you have to carry 2 podcasts, which is
I don't know.
That's tough, right?
I don't know the answer to that question. I for sure would want to keep the 3-hour element, and so I think what we're talking about is probably something far more consumable for people.
I feel like, and this is speaking just for YouTube, I feel like short 10-20 minute clips are going to be better than 3-hour clips.
Yeah.
And from just like how YouTube works perspective, so you shoot a 3-hour long podcast, so you have 180 minutes of podcast. Now you can turn that into freaking 18 10-minute videos essentially, and there's more opportunity to get out there versus a 3-hour podcast is one opportunity.
Yeah, I get that. I like the idea as well of trying things.
Mm-hmm.
I think people like that. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like the trying Taco Rio thing. That did really well for people. Really like that. Obviously, it's 60 seconds, but like having something to have the conversation around, I think people really like that.
Yeah.
Like trying the alcohol. Yeah.
I think so too. I think, well, if you have me back next time, I have this favorite cocktail that I discovered. I'm going to Bravo in Chilliwack again, but everything's in Chilliwack apparently. But
it's not a Chilliwack podcast, guys.
This
everything's
is not a
it.
Chilliwack podcast, but everything we talk about is Chilliwack. But going to Bravo, I like classic cocktails, and so
What does that mean?
Just like old school. I just like old school everything.
Have you tried holy water?
I've not tried holy water. I
Get
imagine
your
it
head out
tastes
of the
like
sand.
water.
No, it tastes amazing. It's the sweetest, most delicious drink. It's like one of my...
Oh, this is a drink. I thought you were talking about holy water.
No. No.
Like,
no, holy water is like a mixture of like...
so it's not just water.
Yeah, it's like blue raspberry... I don't know. I'm doing a terrible job of remembering things right now, but it's a drink. It's an alcoholic beverage.
Yeah.
And it's a mixture of 3 different drinks. And it's mixed with, got Sprite, got something with like blue raspberry in it.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Yeah. And it's delicious, but it's a cocktail. So,
Okay, that does sound amazing.
yeah.
So see, we could have one of those.
Yeah.
We could do a different cocktail every episode.
That's true.
But
you have to make it for them because people love
Oh yeah, you
watching
gotta
things
make it. But
Have you watched the Dana White Fuck It Fridays?
No.
Man, they blow up on Instagram. They get
No way.
millions of views.
To be honest, I kind of avoid Instagram now.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. Instagram pisses me off a little bit lately.
Is it because of the reels? Like they're just going headfirst into it? Did you hear about, I think it was like one of the Jenners being like, Instagram, please go back to being Instagram. And then they were like, no.
Yeah, I think... I don't know. So I follow... That's the guy in charge of Instagram. Adam Masseri? Masseri? I think it's Adam.
Okay.
Sorry.
Shout out to Adam.
Yeah, sorry, Adam Masseri. If that's not your name. You probably never listened to this anyway, but... Mosseri is the last name anyway. He's in charge of Instagram, and so he does actually these reels that are like updates of Instagram this week or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, he's actually like, he seems like a pretty involved dude for being who he is.
Wow.
But he at some point talked about bringing kind of Instagram back a little bit to photographers more, which is it is where it started. It's for photographers to show photos. And I don't know, just the Reels thing takes away from that. And I haven't seen it, but I would love to see it go back to just being not just being for photos, but I would love to see equal weight for photos as Reels.
I don't even know what they're trying to do. Somebody was trying to tell me, because they added that new feature, like basically tweeting, like the equivalent of like a tweet.
Yeah,
and they were
notes.
Yeah, and somebody was trying to
that?
tell me that like Instagram's really trying to encourage engagement. I forget who said that to me. I don't believe them.
Just stick to what you're good at.
I just don't even know how people would engage with these notes.
I saw them. I made one note.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what the hell's a note? So from what I can tell, you see a note and they're poorly advertised. They're in in like above your messages or something weird. And you click on it and it sends a message to that person. So...
But somebody was trying to tell me that like the new style is like they want people like communicating with you directly. And like they want to see more chat action. Man, I wish I could remember who said this to me. But it doesn't even make any sense because it's hard to communicate through that.
Yeah.
And I recently posted just asking people like, what's your most hated corporation?
I saw that.
Because I just interviewed someone.
I was actually
about,
interested to see who came out on top.
Yeah, so there was like the Walmarts, there was like a few different ones, but like it didn't increase my engagement on that post the more people commented.
No.
And so like I don't believe that the algorithm's all about that engagement.
So what was the most hated corporation?
Oh, there was just different ones. One person said Nestle, because we got Nestle here in BC. Hope, BC, not Chilliwack.
Yeah, Hope
BC.
is not Chilliwack. Hope is basically Chilliwack.
It's like 6,000 people or something. But Nestle made the list. Walmart made the list. One that I'd never heard of, like Shiza or something that I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
And a few others.
McDonald's.
Yeah. But it didn't increase the more people commented and messaged me saying their comments. They didn't get more response. Like, it didn't go like, oh, someone commented, so you're going to get like 20 more people see your post. Like, that's not what happened. So I don't think it's about engagement. I don't know what Instagram's trying to do.
I don't know. But again, I always try to think of this like when I'm... You ever like watch a... Fighting's a bad example. Say you watch a hockey game.
I don't watch hockey.
Say you do.
I'm terrible.
Say, pretend that you're watching hockey. Okay. And you have all those people shouting at the players what to do and stuff.
In person or
like,
on TV?
Wherever. Like people that think they're experts.
Okay.
I always try to think like that. There are well-paid, smarter than you experts behind the scenes that are doing something for a reason.
You think so?
This is me playing devil's advocate again.
Mm-hmm.
I know you hate that term.
No, it's okay.
But so I'm like, what the hell is Instagram doing? Instagram can afford to pay brilliant people to come and do a thing that are way smarter than me, and they don't have to tell me what they're doing. So it might appear random what they're doing, but I bet you there's some kind of game plan that might not benefit you or me, but it's what they're trying to do benefits them. They're trying to make money, and they're doing something that they think will make them money.
Can I counter that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so here's one of the problems. I think Elon Musk proved that Twitter has a problem, which is aesthetically, they're a busy place. Far less busy than they want us to think. And I think Instagram had the same problem. So I'm sure you've seen the bots on Instagram.
Yeah. That's horrible.
That increased, but it increased because they wanted it to increase. So they let users sign up without any information. They did that so they can look more busy than they are. Because you post on Jerry News or something, there's a new post, all of the posts are bots. And so it can make the successful organizations look busier because you see 1,000 comments on a post that was going to get 20.
So you think some of these bots are put out by the corporation?
Not directly, but I think they make a decision and say...
They allow it.
Yeah. They don't want to get rid of all the bots. And I think there's an incentive in that. And I think they're trying to figure out where the next market is. And I think that's the big fear that all social media organizations have is, yeah, we're good today. Yeah. But we don't want to end up as the next MySpace. Yeah. As the next BlackBerry.
It's probably a scary business to be in, to be honest.
And Twitter, like Jack Dorsey talked about, we're not monetizing this shit. Like, we don't know what to do to monetize properly. We're not doing a good job of it. And it's hard for them to figure out where to go because it's so tough to monetize. And Facebook is one of the only ones that figured it out. And people put up with Facebook's marketing and often use it. But Instagram and Twitter seem to be something different where when I see Amazon pop up and they have like different things, it's like, I'm not going shopping on Amazon. I'm on Instagram. There's something different about the platform where when I'm scrolling through Facebook, they've got it set up so it's as consumable as something as a regular post. Yeah. And I don't think they've figured that out for Twitter or Instagram yet. And so I think these social media organizations, as big as they are, I think it's a real problem monetizing it.
Yeah. I like how Amazon's a different animal though, because they're already selling stuff.
Yeah. I just mean like on Instagram when they show, like I'm sure you've seen an Amazon pop up as like a sponsor or like a marketer.
Yeah. I don't know, this is probably sidetrack then. It just made me think of it, but like the Amazon, like how you monetize with Amazon is so brilliant. And it's like, I've been able to monetize with Amazon since day one. Whereas to become a YouTube partner, you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours watch time, which when you're in that zone sucks. And it seems like you're never going to get there. Like, and then even I hit 1,000 subscribers, like, and I looked at my watch time. It was like, no, it took me much longer. But when you finally hit it, you start getting money from YouTube. I make more money from Amazon than I do from YouTube doing YouTube videos. Yeah. And it's just because I put a link that has a tracker with my ID and stuff on it. You click on that link and anything you buy on Amazon for the next 24 hours, I get a cut of. Yeah. I love that. It's awesome.
Have you thought about doing a channel just on like how YouTube works?
I would, you know what? It's one of those things where I would love to, but I don't feel like I'm qualified.
Were you qualified with leatherwork?
Probably not. Probably still not. But
is it just because you understand the steepness of the learning curve more with YouTube than you did with leather at the time?
I don't know. Maybe it's imposter syndrome again. But I just I would love to, but I don't know that I could do it.
Yeah, it's how I feel with the podcast. I've thought about doing one on like. Because like I tried to watch videos on the Rode Go-Tos of like how they work, how to optimize it, and I didn't find any good videos. And I was like, oh.
You should be sponsored by Rode, by the way.
I'm sure they could care less about my viewership.
I'm just saying, you got Rode all over everything in here.
Yeah.
They do make good stuff, though.
They make amazing stuff. And have you watched their videos?
Some of them.
Their YouTube channel is unparalleled. In terms of like creating a community of like explaining stuff to you, there'll be like things you didn't know that your Rode Go-To can do, things you didn't realize about this, and they'll have bloopers in their videos, so it's like super human and funny and witty and easy to absorb, and doesn't make me feel like an idiot. So
you know what they need to do is they need to come out with like a top tier broadcast mic. I know their stuff's really good, and I like yours, but it seems to me like they have. This is like the go-to like microphone, boom, arm. They have their Rodecaster. Is that the Rodecaster?
Two.
Yeah. So they have that, which is like the go-to one of those. They have their Rode Go, which is like the go-to lav mic. But then the Shure SM7B seems to be the go-to mic for podcasters.
They have a new one. They just came out with the NTH or something.
Yeah, and is it good?
I haven't used it, but they have a whole platform for producing, and I can put applause in and stuff.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, they have a bunch of weird kind of features.
You should do applause and a laugh track.
Yeah, they have a whole thing for the Rode. I can connect my Rode Go-Tos to their new platform.
What is it? Audio interface? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. So I have Audacity, and they have their own now, and they're recommending.
Is Audacity what you use? That's what I use.
That's what I use. Yeah, it's simple. Idiot proof so far.
Can I have more of this? Is that weird?
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
You like that one better?
I don't know what I do.
Well, you're committing to the...
Now I feel like I need to go back and try this one.
Okay.
We're going to do it.
I found that one was smoother.
I would agree with you. Maybe we do a podcast on two people who don't know much about whiskey, learning about whiskey.
Do we bring someone on to explain it to us?
No, God, no.
Because the sheriff guy, man, he was saying all the words.
He knows the stuff, though, yeah.
It was cool. And
he could take us on a guided tour or something.
And I feel like he's very similar. And interestingly, he likes politics. And so he sort of like...
way smoother, you're right.
Yeah? Okay, I'm not crazy. This one makes my nose feel a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
Like a burn.
I know what you're talking about. But
I don't know. Is that
anyone listening to this doesn't know what you're talking about?
Like my nose goes numb for a moment in time.
I could see that.
Yeah.
That sounds like something who doesn't know about whiskey. Something they would say about whiskey.
I feel like it's more honest than the people who are experts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're
like you're gonna get real information from me.
Yeah.
But like when he was talking to me, and this is again where it comes down to like curiosity. Mm-hmm. I feel like the thing I can bring to whatever I do is genuine curiosity.
Yes.
And that's where he was like, he knew all of his stuff, and he's like, I thought about doing a YouTube channel, and I was like, my eyes were like they couldn't have gotten wider of like, how do you know all this stuff? And I was like, he was like, originally I was interested in wine, then I moved over to whiskey, and then he was like, just talking smack about Macallan, and I was like, it's so interesting. Like, I want to get inside your mind. Like, I want to see what's ticking in there that makes you so curious. And so that's my favorite. It's when I can have a conversation like that.
I think you can kind of tell, like, I only listen to podcasts, obviously, that interest me, but I think you can tell when someone's like disingenuous, when they're like trying to fake interest in something, and you don't sound like that. Like you clearly put in the time, and same with the other podcasts that I enjoy. That I mean, they're popular. So obviously they're doing something with Joe Rogan and Andrew Huberman and all their guests. Like, they seem invested in it.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're just trying to fake it, then why have them on in the first place? Like, just like, there's tons of people you can have someone on that you are interested in. You don't have to be interested in everyone, but just like be selective like you are.
Yeah, that's the weird thing is I have people on a list. Like, I have a long list of people, but I don't reach out to some because I don't see it yet. But I know it's coming.
No, that's cool.
And that's the weird thing is, like, sometimes I know eventually, but I don't think curiosity is a thing that happens by accident.
Yeah.
Like, I think through doing the research, through pondering questions that I might have, you get curious.
Yeah.
And, like, I had genuine questions for you. Like, how do you get the leather? Where does it come from? What is good leather? What's bad leather?
Yeah.
And, like, I've never thought about that question a day in my life until I was sitting down with you. And then it was like, what is the process? How do you decide? What is it like to give gifts that are so personal to you that you've put in work into to develop and share with people? And the thing that I was thinking about was, like, you might give someone, like, and you talked about this, like, give someone a gift and they might not, well, you're already making it. And so they view it as, like, less than because you're already making it or you're already trying to make it. And so this is just a part of that. And, like, they treat it as, like, this person made this. Like, I still have it. And I use it, my business card holder that you gave me all the time. Yeah. And people ask me about it and I'm so proud of it. Because that's what I think we're missing is, like, a pride in where things come from. And I think that's what you're a beacon of light for is, like, think about where your shit comes from.
Yeah.
And be proud when there's some thought put into it and some care and some consideration into where you're getting it from and the quality and the craftsmanship. Like, our conversation was like, craftsmanship fucking matters. And us just forgetting about that, we do that at our own detriment. And you saying, like, I like heritage stuff and that interests me. It's like, that's so something I haven't heard, something I'm not seeing on the nightly news, something I'm not hearing from anyone but you right now. And then obviously your community reached out and it was like, wow, there are these people out there that are interested in this, but they're few and far between. So many people are making shitty fucking soap. I don't know. Have you seen how many people are making their own goddamn soap?
Yeah.
Stop it. It's worse. It dries out my goddamn skin. It's not good. You think it's good. You think you're all natural with your lavender scents, but every soap that I've tried from, like, a craftsman market is terrible. And it's the worst industry right now for people being like, oh, it's got eucalyptus. And the people I see the most stressed out are the people saying, oh, it's got essential oils in it. You're the most stressed people. You're my issue. You're the problem at the grocery store, spraying on your eucalyptus oil, saying that you're relaxed. You're not relaxed. You're you're the Karen of the store. And so I feel like you're bringing that authentic, like, I made this with my own hands, put in time into cutting this. And it was like, so cool to talk to you about that. Yeah.
You know, on the soap thing, though, I just... you're right. But have you seen the Dr. Squatch ads on Instagram?
No.
It's like, I don't know, it's like a bigger company that's making, like, soap and deodorants and stuff like that for dudes. My wife bought me some of them. They're so good.
I believe you. It's the people who are making it themselves, and they're like, I use, like, baking soda and a eucalyptus.
Oh, okay. No, this is like, I don't know. They're like soaps, I don't know, like old school methods, I guess. Yeah. But they work well, and then they have, like, deodorant with, was it aluminum that's in deodorant that's supposed to be bad for you or whatever?
Yeah.
Anyway, my wife bought me that because I've had cancer before and don't really want it again. And yeah, deodorant works well. I'm a big sweaty guy. Seems to work well. And the soaps are awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I like that stuff.
Does it soften your skin? I always use ivory.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
You
have tattoos. We've never done a tattoo tour. Remind me about that.
We kind of talked about it. This is... Here, so do I do this and show?
Yeah.
It's like... It's one of those things where it kind of looks scary-ish, and then I tell about it and it's actually nerdy, but it's Cthulhu. And it's from my favorite horror author, L.P. Lovecraft, who wrote a bunch of mostly, like, short stories.
Yeah.
And this was probably his most famous short story about it's like a big alien monster that lives in the sea and is dead but not dead kind of thing.
I like how you say it's not scary, and then you start describing this dead thing.
It's a horror. It's scary in that it's a horror story, and it's not scary in that it's not real.
Do you think you intimidate people?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I don't know. I think it's funny.
Like when you're at the grocery store?
I don't think so.
I feel like I'd be intimidated by if we didn't know each other.
I don't think so. I'm generally pretty happy.
100%. I'm not disagreeing with that. I just think your appearance looks very...
But I think that's that I like things that maybe make me look gruff a little bit. I actually was talking about this with a friend at work, and I joked that I've worked so hard on making myself look unapproachable. And then I had a daughter, and it's like out the window.
Yeah.
She like disarms like the scariest looking dudes. Like I took her. This is funny. I took her to Superstore, and we were on our way out, and she, both my wife and I have tattoos, and so she likes tattoos because kids like whatever their parents do. She saw this at the front, this really big native guy covered in like tribally tattoos. I don't know what you would call it, but native looking tattoos.
Right.
Really big guy, kind of scary looking.
Yeah.
You probably like a guy you probably wouldn't walk up to and talk to. And she was kind of looking and pointing at him, and then I was finally like, just wave at him, and she waved at him, and this like you watched this scary looking and he's pretty muscular, like big dude covered in tattoos, giant smile, waves back, and it's so funny. Like this like tiny little 3-year-old girl can disarm the scariest looking dude.
Yeah. I think that's important for people to remember, because I think we can get locked in that, but I think that's true, that people are like far more dynamic, and that children, for a reason, disarm all of us, and that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to remind us of our own innocence, of
I think so,
the world's innocence in that way.
Yeah. Did
you see that one of Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena getting ready for their fight?
Mm-mm.
Okay, this one's. I think you're gonna like this. I thought it was beautiful.
Like the stare down, or
the stare down.
I love the stare downs.
Oh, you didn't see this one though.
No.
Okay, so for people just listening, this tonight being recorded on a Saturday, Juliana Pena with her daughter, and her daughter is standing behind her, flexing, getting ready for the same fight.
Yeah, that's awesome. They do, though. Like, they take interest in what you're doing. They mimic every single thing you do.
Yeah. And her daughter is standing behind her mother in support of her fight.
And her daughter's going to be a shit kicker one day, I guarantee you.
Absolutely. And just that genuineness that children are on your side.
They mimic everything. Yeah. It's so... my daughter kind of has a mouth on her now. And she does.
I wonder where she gets it.
And that's the funny thing. It's not that I don't swear. I swear a decent amount. I try to limit it in front of her, but it comes out. Like, if you have kids, it's unavoidable. Like, they're idiots sometimes. It just comes out. But every swear word she picks up on is my wife's every single time. It's so funny. Just walking in the house and she's like, "Where are the fucking dogs?" I'm like, it's so funny. And then I my swear words go under the radar, and I think what it means is that she doesn't actually listen to me at all. But
or she's trying to mimic your wife.
Yeah. Either way, it's so funny. I can say something stupid and it's disregarded, and then my wife drops one F-bomb, and it's like the word of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. Has it been a trip to watch a person develop? How's COVID been? You know what's a trip? Okay, so you talked to me about that daycare, that program.
The outdoor daycare.
So Dean Work, recent podcast guest, after you, picked his granddaughter up from the same program, and then somebody else talked about it. It is
amazing.
And so I've had three podcast guests talk about the same program. It is an
amazing program. It's made such a difference to her. And I, this is my only kid, so maybe just going to any daycare makes this difference, but it's just her confidence, sociability, everything. It's made such a huge difference for her. And even she's a pretty cautious kid. Like, she's not the kid running and jumping on crazy things. She's very deliberate with what she's doing. And she's like a little more careless now, which is like a good thing for her. That's someone. Is it Jordan Peterson that said, let kids do dangerous things carefully?
Yeah.
She wasn't doing that before, and she is now. And I think that it was that program letting them climb on trees and do stuff like that. Like, she's still cautious, but that program is brilliant.
Yeah. Dean talked about it, how he got to see his granddaughter play at the same Vedder River that he played at when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And I forget exactly how he put it, but the teacher basically was like, your daughter enjoys this more than most of the boys do, and she's comfortable being out in the rain. And like, and in that moment he was like, wow, like, my granddaughter is so much like me. And like, it's a beautiful thing to see, because like, we get so weird about like, do we live forever? Where do we go after this? But it's like, why isn't it enough that your child is you with all your idiosyncrasies, but better, just a smidge better based on what you've taught them about all the mistakes and fuck ups that you've made, that they're just a little bit better. And why isn't that enough for us? Like, why can't we just enjoy that?
Yeah.
You know?
You know, it's kind of along those lines is a trip for me. So my folks are moving out to Chilliwack from Abbotsford now. Yeah. And they've downsized quite a bit. They had a big house that, you know, me and my younger brother live with them in, you know, like, I think we moved there 2004. So they're finally moving to something a little bit smaller in my complex. But
in your complex,
in the same complex that I live in. But anyway,
how far away? Because you live in a reasonably sized complex.
A 5-minute walk.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, but
they're not next door.
No, but so unbeknownst to me, my mom, I loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a kid.
TMNT?
Yeah. Do you know what that is? Is that still a thing?
Yeah.
It is?
Well, I'm not a kid anymore, but it was a kid when I was...
But it existed when you were a kid? Okay, good.
TMNT.
So, but I guess the original iteration of that. But, so, she kept all of my Ninja Turtle toys, all of them, like the big Technodrome that Shredder lived in or whatever. And she's like, yeah, we're downsizing here. And she gave them all back to me. And so my daughter is playing with my old Ninja Turtle toys.
Right.
And like watching her play with it's like mind blowing. It's the weirdest thing to me. I'm like looking at the dates on, like, all the dates are stamped on these things, are 1989 on the.
Wow.
And she's playing with these toys that I got when I was like her age.
Yeah.
It's unreal. It's so weird.
And that's what you like, though, right? You like things lasting a long time and being passed on.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I was hard on them too, man. Like, I don't know how she found parts to some of the things that are existing there. There's even like one of them that's in its like pack still, like its original packaging. So I actually grabbed that away from her. I was like, no, that's gonna go down in the leatherwork studio shop. Like that's you're not opening this. But
that's funny. The way you talk about it, that's funny. Just because Rebecca, and she's gonna kill me for saying this, but one of her, when she was a kid growing up, she would have her Barbies fight, like her Ken and her Barbie doll fight. Yeah. And like heads would be flying after a disagreement. And I get to hear from her mom and her dad and her sister about how she was. And she'd be like, oh no, you can't do that. And then, and then like all of a sudden body parts are flying everywhere. And it's like that energy and that passion behind it. It's just like, it's so honest. And like, we don't, and I think Jordan Peterson does a good job of like reminding us that like we are actually playing out our lives in those moments. And like, you don't think of it like that. You think you're just a kid having fun, but they're trying to understand, what is it to play house? Yeah. What is a home? What is safe? What is a mother? What is a father? What does that look like? And they're trying to pull the best of the father and the best of the mother and trying to figure out what that means to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does heads and stuff flying mean then?
that she was not okay with being mistreated, I think was for her, because her parents divorced, and I think that impacted her. But she wanted an upstanding person to be in a relationship. She believed in the institution of marriage genuinely, and I don't even know, like, because we say we have a 50% divorce rate. We have like 50% of people who shouldn't have been whatever married is to begin with. That's a fair point, yeah. Like, I don't believe if you can get married in Vegas and like it takes 15 minutes, like you're gonna have a certain amount of the population that should have never been anywhere near together to begin with.
Oh yeah.
And so when we talk about that, it's like it's hard to measure what the actual number is, because most people don't even think that, like, my frustration with men specifically is there's this wooing period.
Yeah.
And then once they've wooed, it's like, I'm going to sit around, eat Cheetos, and watch TV and like do nothing.
Yeah.
That is uninspiring and not what the person signed up for. Like, you're selling a product.
It's false advertising.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think men are really, really bad for that.
Yeah.
I know so many guys who watch golf all day on TV and just sit around. And it's like, that certainly isn't the product that you proposed when you were giving a ring over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mind is blown that people watch golf.
Yeah. People like, because they also have the fireplace, right? Nothing's happening in that either.
Yeah.
They've got some overlap there. What's your plans for the rest of the day?
This is pretty much it, man.
Yeah.
I got to work tomorrow, so this is... I was happy. So we've made plans like 3 or 4 times prior, and I've had
to bail. Just to be clear, it's been months since we've gotten together.
3 or 4 times. But I've bailed on every one of them, so I was like adamant that I was going to make it here today, and I made it. So, and I'm happy that I did. I said, I didn't know that this was a podcast coming into it, and I'm happy that it was, because it's almost like you should almost, when you have a podcast guest, just surprise them, be like, hey, can you just come by for whatever reason just before, and then like spring it on them. Yeah
But they'd be like, the worst is having a guest come on and they have somewhere to be because they check their watch. I'm not in it after that.
Oh really?
It's probably my biggest detriment, and something I need to be more clear on in the future reaching out to people is like, I can't have you
don't come in if you have something to do after.
Throws me right off, like, because then I'm like, where are we, where do they have to be, what am I doing, and like my flow and my enjoyment of it, it's like 20% of what it was.
I could see that.
Yeah,
I have this thing where I like, there's things like pet peeves of mine that I feel like if I have a pet peeve that I really need to be mindful that I'm not doing the thing that annoys me too, and one of them is checking watch and checking phone when you're in front of someone else, and like it includes like going through a cashier or being at a restaurant, or I try really hard not to be on my phone if I'm with my daughter or something. Yeah, because it like drives, obviously, like if you're like showing each other something or it's like relevant, then obviously that doesn't, but like I don't know, just you're sending the wrong signal if you're sitting here like this every freaking few minutes. Usually they're pretty subtle, like they'll just glance down. But you can tell. And then I feel it, and then I go like, I don't know where I was, but you don't seem invested. Yeah. Like I'm invested in the guest. Yeah. And then that throws me off if you're not invested. It's weird. And because it's not like, for most guests, this one is obviously different, but for most guests, I'll shut up and let you talk. Like, Brian Minter was 20 minutes before I said a word. Mm-hmm. I will get out of your way. Yeah. So if you're not even interested in what you have to say, and my 1 minute of responding brings out you checking your watch, what? Like, that's not fair. Like, I'm giving you 20 minutes of fully engaged. Like, I'm not glancing away. I'm not checking my phone. Like, I'm fully engaged. And you can't give me 45 seconds to ask my question that you're going to answer for 20 minutes. Like, this is madness. You need, like, a lockbox or something. They check their phone and watch when they come in. Yeah, but I want them to want it. And so, like, one thing that it tells me is, like, I've gotten much more, like, responsible about how much I put into marketing someone, because if they're not going to meet me halfway, if they're not going to
put in the time to like actually engage with me,
Yeah.
why am I pouring in? Like, I try and make a new story for 5 days of the week that has a different image of them, a different perspective.
Your social media presence is amazing.
Thank you.
Which is that Rebecca mainly?
Yeah, that's all Rebecca. But thank you. I'm going to take credit of her.
No, she does an amazing job.
Yeah. So like I try my best to like make it so throughout the week, if you're busy, if you miss a post, you're still going to know that there's a new episode. I drop a new episode every week.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't give me 2 hours worth of like focused time without you checking your watch, it's like it takes me out of it. It makes me unmotivated to want to be as thoughtful and as curious, and I really recoil. And I don't know, like, I think I'm going to be more clear because some people have been like, I have somewhere to be after that. And it's like, then we'll reschedule.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because I want you to be engaged in this. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, you're doing it right then. You recorded a podcast yesterday, right?
This morning. Yeah.
So
I got another one tomorrow morning.
Oh, so you're going to have 3 in the can there.
I was supposed to have 4, and then one person reschedule them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get ahead so that I can just start dropping because I want to start doing 2 a week eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is I like this because I've been on here before. This is like behind the scenes of your podcast now. Do you want to do 2 a week, or do you want to get a whole shitload in the bank? Because if you have a whole shitload in the bank, it frees you up to do more other things.
I want some in the bank. I've always tried to have a couple in the bank that I'm dropping in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. The challenge has been like, I have a few weekends booked, and so then I burn through those 2, and then I'm like, I need to have something for next week, and so like that puts a little bit more pressure on me. But I like having a few in the bank, but I also want to start dropping more consistently because this heat wave has been shit for me.
Yeah.
Because people aren't listening to they listen to music on the beach, not listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
So I see that, and I can't predict what's going to be an off week. Some weeks it's like it's pouring rain, and then everybody's tuning in, and then other days it's like they're commuting to work, so it's busy. So it's like it's hard to know. But this heat wave has been terrible.
Interesting.
Yeah, didn't see it coming.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do all my podcasts like commuting to work, so it doesn't matter weather. So that's weird that.
But I pulled probably half of mine who are like uncommitted podcast listeners who don't usually listen to podcasts, who are tuning in because I interviewed someone interesting. And that's my challenge right now. It's like half my audience. You're great. Thank you for listening. But the challenge is that you tune in for the guest.
It's retention too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so having like a consistent audience. I've got like a really good consistent audience, but YouTube is where like it fluxes. And then I personally feel terrible if their episode doesn't do well.
Yeah.
Like I take it personally, and I go like, I didn't do enough to promote you because you deserve.
But YouTube's a weird space where you can do everything right, and it's just doesn't do as well as you'd think. Like it's a really weird thing.
But I feel like because I've invited them on, because they've driven out from Vancouver, gas prices what they are.
Yeah.
That I've done you a disservice if your episode doesn't reach properly.
It's just on them for not being interesting enough.
But that's the problem is since people haven't listened, then I would have had more views.
Yeah.
So they didn't listen. So that's why I blame my marketing abilities on that. Is because if they weren't interesting enough, well, at least people would have had to tune in to know that. But if they didn't tune in, then it can't be them. It's on me.
There's so many factors, though, man. It's hard to blame yourself. Like even just being a small YouTuber.
Yeah.
It's so hard to get going. That like early grind is rough, and I think you can't
call yourself a small YouTuber, by the way.
Oh, I think I can still.
Okay.
You're in a way like what you're doing for YouTube is way harder than what I'm doing. The educational how-to YouTube space is super safe, and what you're doing is super hard.
But what I'm saying is like who came on? Somebody came on and they were like, I checked out your podcast, and if you look on pod ratings or something like that, I'm in the top 5% of podcasts because I have 10,000 listens total. Because people have tuned it because I've done so many episodes. Most people do 5 episodes of a podcast.
You're so consistent
that I actually have viewership. it doesn't mean anything. Like, I've gotten nowhere near the reach of
But you hone your skill.
For sure.
If nothing else, you get better every episode.
Yeah.
And you learn something every episode. Like, I guarantee, just like Joe Rogan said, I guarantee you're smarter now than when you started.
And I learned probably more from our conversation than I ever learned from any other specific episode. Because I was... Is tipsy the word you use? Is that still the correct word for like being a little bit intoxicated?
I don't know. I'm 36. I'm old now. Aren't I old?
But I don't know if that's the word that even adults use. I'm going to use the word. And so trying to stay sharp in that moment taught me a lot. But I also learned a lot about myself, about being fun and being fun with the moment. And so if you go listen to our episode and then you see my Chris Koo episode, I did it without alcohol. I tried to bring the
Chris Koo is the bird.
The bird.
Right? Yeah, he was good too.
So I brought the same humor, the same lightness, the same kind of silliness to that episode. Not being unprofessional, but being like, what? We need mosquito, like trying to be silly with it.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about being comfortable, because I was like, I'm comfortable. I can ask a question in a chill way. But through ours, it was like, how can I make people laugh? And like my close friend Braden, who often watches the UFC with us, he's like the silly side. He brings out the silly side in me, because he's like, Conor McGregor's like never lost a fight. And it's like, no, he has lost a fight. And he's like, no, he could beat Khabib any day of the week. And he's like, he's silly. Like he doesn't, he will say he believes that, but he doesn't really believe that. But he brings out a silly nature in me. And so in our conversation, it brought out like a humor in me that I hadn't explored behind the video camera previously. And so I took that on to other episodes, and that's what I feel like has been lacking in maybe the last 10 is like super serious. Okay, tell me about this. And I've gotten good with my transitions and stuff, but having a personality beyond the questions is something I really honed through our conversation, and something I'm trying to nurture.
It's hard, like that, having a personality thing. That's something that I think I struggled with, so that's something I kind of focus on. Yeah. And I'm probably losing it since I haven't done a video in 2 months, but one like piece of advice from a YouTuber that I really took to heart is Mr. Beast, who's one of the biggest YouTubers. He has across his platforms, I think he has 200 million subscribers. But his piece of advice, he's been YouTubing since he was 12 years old, was do one thing better every video. Yeah. And so that's just kind of what I tried to do. Like, I would really go back and watch my video, and I'd be like, I need to do one thing better. Okay, the lighting's shit. Try to fix the lighting. Lighting's still shit. I've struggled with lighting. I'm in a basement. But
samesies.
Yeah. So, we can talk lighting. I have a light for you. I found the solution. But like, just one thing. Okay, audio's shit. What can I do? I'm in a basement surrounded by concrete. Okay, I got a better mic. Okay, it's still shit. What can I do? Like, and I just really tried just rewatch, find one thing to improve on, instead of just like, just randomly picking something. Like, watch until you identify a problem. Let's correct that problem in the next video, and then in the next. And then the theory is that in 100 videos, how many podcasts have you done?
This will be 67 or 68.
Holy shit. Okay, so the idea is that like in 100 podcasts, in 100 YouTube videos, in 100 whatever you're doing, if you're correcting one thing every single video by 100, you should be pretty solid. And that's, I think I'm coming up on, you're ahead of me. I think I'm coming up on 60 videos now. So, but it's just like, just little tweaks instead of focusing on big picture all the time. I think that's the way forward. That's the way to get better at something.
Well, that is a great advice to leave people with. Tim, it's always a pleasure to sit down with you. We just did 2.5 hours, man.
That was good. That was super fun.
Thank you so much for being willing to come back on. Hopefully we can find a plan moving forward to work together.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, buddy.